Hey, Andrew.
Yes, Steven?
You know how we romanticize the days of going out to our local video store and sifting through endless amounts of movies, searching for our favorite films, and maybe even finding some hidden gems?
Oh yes, I know it all too well. That used to be my favorite thing to do. Unfortunately, everything is online now.
Well, what if I told you that there was a place online where you could get some of them same thrills as going to the video store?
Are you talking about Orbit DVD?
I knew you knew what I was talking about. Orbit DVD is located in Asheville, North Carolina, and online with OrbitDVD.com, they bring you everything your physical media heart desires.
Yeah, they have an awesome website that stays up to date with the latest releases from all of your favorite boutique labels as well as studio releases. Not only do they carry American labels such as Criterion Collection, Severin Films, Vinegar Syndrome, and Warner Archive, but they get routine shipments on imports from companies such as 88 Films, Arrow Video, Imprint, and so much more.
And with the option to sell or trade your used copies for cash or store credit, they really bring that video store vibe to you. So go to OrbitDVD.com and stock up on your Blu-rays.
And tell them Chasing Labels sent you.
Welcome to another episode of Chasing Labels. I'm Stephen Billings, your co-host, and as always with me is your other co-host, Andrew Cabral. How you doing, man?
Doing good, Stephen. Doing really good. It is 2 days post my birthday.
Yes, I
I'm
needed
in
to ask you about that. How was your birthday?
Oh, good. It was, I'm not a big party guy, not a big people person. Basically, a good time to me is literally just watching movies by myself. So that's pretty much what I did.
So the normal routine.
So my normal life, just I'm older now,
Yeah.
I guess. I spent the day, obviously, I got some takeout from my favorite restaurant, and a couple of family members came over, but not a lot, just my aunt and uncle. And we just ate food, and then I proceeded to binge watch film noir in preparation for today's podcast.
That sounds amazing.
That's what I did.
That sounds amazing to me. I'm getting ready for a baby, and it's any day now. It's like any day now.
Yeah.
I thought maybe there was a chance today something was maybe going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So if there's like a sudden moment where I have to stop, it's my wife coming in here saying, "Let's go."
Yeah. I know. I didn't even think of that being an actual possibility until you just mentioned it. So this is Baby Watch 2022, I guess. I told Steven last night he's in the end game now.
I'm in the end game.
To reference certain popular pop culture movies of the day.
Had to throw in that Avengers quote. Yeah,
I guess so. It popped into my head. I just had to let it out.
Well, we're on spine number, 54?
Yes, back on task.
Spine number 54.
This is spine number 54, episode 54. And we have, once again, a very special guest with us. Stephen, please introduce our special guest.
Yes. So she is, she does many things. And one of the ways I was introduced to her was through her documentary, Out of Print. So she's a filmmaker, she's a podcaster, she does a lot of things. We're going to get into it. We're here with Julia Marchese. How you doing?
Marchese, that is me. Hello, welcome. Hello.
How's everything going out there?
Oh, hey, I'm in Hollywood, California. It's all peachy keen out here.
Good. So as we always do with all our guests, we love to start by just getting into the basics of movies. Like where did that love of movies spawn from?
Oh, man. My parents like movies, so we went quite often. And I, as a kid growing up in the 80s, when you had after school where you're watching MTV, which was a lot of times, or cartoons or movies. And so it was that kind of thing and then once VHS kicked in, then it was something I'm the kind of movie watcher who will watch something obsessively over and over and over. So like VHS was perfect. I was like, yes, just again and again. So it's been a really, really long time. I can remember going to see, E.T. and I was like 2, 3, like I can remember that. So it's been a very small child,
That E.T. is one that gets brought up a lot on here. A lot of people, E.T. was like formative. Like that was a movie in their early childhood that they just loved, and either it might have scared them or something. It
Yeah.
had an effect in some way on them.
Yeah, my first movie, my parents took me to see Clash of the Titans, which I was taken out screaming. That was probably not a good choice for them, but I don't remember that, but I do remember E.T. And I distinctly remember the beginning where the men are chasing him through the forest with the flashlights, being terrifying. But after that, I was all gravy, and I was like, yes, happy.
Yeah, and so when it our show, of course, is about collecting. Was collecting part of the formative years? Did you start collecting film, or was the filmmaking side more interesting to you to start, or which came first?
I feel like I've been interested in every side of it for a long time, but collecting is obviously the easiest way to start
Yeah.
because as a film fan, that's how you're growing and learning what you like and what your style is, what kind of filmmakers you're into. So, Who Framed Roger Rabbit was the first VHS I ever owned that I was given to me as a present. But Pet Sematary is the first one I can remember becoming obsessed with. And Pet Sematary is big because I got into Stephen King when I was like 11, and it was like Pet Sematary and It and Carrie were all like one lump of deliciousness. And Pet Sematary was the one that got me both into Stephen King and horror. And I didn't like horror before that, but this was something. And so I remember I watched Pet Sematary obsessively. Like I look back and I'm like, why did my parents not say something? Like it was because it's like you're like 12-year-old kid. Like it's not like Mary Poppins, right? It's something. There's some movies brutal. It's amazing, and like Mary Lambert kills that book. So good. And then it kind of like that going from there. So then in college, I had this very small collection because in my dorm room, I had like a combo TV VCR. So people would come into my room to borrow tapes sometimes, but it was like a drawer full. And then once VHS video stores started closing, which is heartbreaking to me, I should just mention, I hated that they closed. Like every time it happened, it like just destroys me. It's the same when movie theaters close. It just breaks my heart. But silver lining is that I was able to buy a bunch of movies for very little money and then know that they went to a house that would really appreciate them. So the dream was that one time I went to a place called La Cañana Video where there was a gentleman named Hamlet who ran the store. And I was like, hey, are you selling any tapes? And he was like, yeah, I guess so. And I was like, which ones? He's like, any of them. And I was like, really? And he was like, $1 each. I'm like, oh my God. So like you got to go through the entire video and literally pick up anything off the wall you wanted. And then he saw how much I bought a lot. And then he's like, hey, if you want to come back the next day, there's more in the back room, which I did. And it was like the heaven, my VHS heaven. I got to experience it. It was lovely. So I have a wall of color coordinated VHS that I'm very proud of. I know a lot of collectors, A, get on me for VHS, B, get on me for color coordination. I understand both. I understand VHS is not the ideal format to watch a film. I also understand that color coordinating your films is insane and very hard to find anything for most people. But for me, not a problem. You ask me what color a thing is and I got it. Like my brain can do that.
Everybody's got their own style. That's what's interesting. And yours is one of the most interesting I've heard so far. You color coordinate. That's cool. I like that.
It's aesthetically pleasing. And I was featured in a movie called Rewind This, which is a VHS documentary I highly recommend checking out. And the wall was featured. Apparently went over very well in Japan. So I was like, hey, they know something about design. So it made me feel very good.
Nice. You're famous internationally.
big in Japan.
I guess, yeah, that's something you should need to put on a resume or a promo thing for your upcoming film.
Big in Japan.
Yes.
I had a zine in college because I went to college in the 90s called Big in Japan. So I've already been there and done that.
Nice.
I've already been big in Japan.
She's ahead of us, man. We're
so behind. Ahead of the times.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're collecting, passion for film and the collecting stuff that you do. I can tell, and as you said, anytime you see like a video store closed down or a movie theater closed down, I'm with you there because I used to work at a movie theater, and I know, of course, you did, working at the New Beverly. Please get into how you got into working there, and I know you don't work there no longer. I think it was 2014 when you stopped working there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so talk about your experience working there and how you got into that and your some of your favorite experiences.
Sure. So I moved to LA in 2001 and I almost immediately found a New Beverly calendar, which so my aesthetic is groovy. That would be if I had to make it in one word. And that calendar is groovy. And I was like, hello, what is this? So because I grew up in Las Vegas where we didn't have revival cinema. It didn't exist. Like the only thing that existed was you could see Rocky Horror Picture Show, but everything else was just new releases. So I had never really conceived of that. So this kind of really cheap double feature on film was really appealing to me, and just walking into that theater made me feel very at home, because I like small, sleazy and cozy. Those things make me happy. Like a big sterile like multiplex, I'm not into. It doesn't feel welcoming to me. So it felt amazing, and the vibe was just incredible. So I hounded the owner, Sherman Torgan, for a job for years, until he finally relented and gave me a job. So he sadly passed away a few years after I started working there, and we started doing a programming. I started doing a guest programming series. So we asked directors to come down to talk about some of their favorite movies and how those movies inspired them. And it turned into this kind of giant thing where we started out with Edgar Wright, and he did this big series. We're going to be talking about Edgar Wright later, I promise you.
Yes.
I have Edgar Wright stories for you pertaining to some of the things we'll be talking about in this episode. And then it was Joe Dante and Diablo Cody and Eli Roth, because all of these people know each other. So it's just this kind of one after another. So I had this amazing experience of getting to meet so many of my favorite filmmakers, interview them and talk to them about why these films, how did these films, why these. So it was incredible, and something where not only did I get to watch all of these movies that I couldn't necessarily always see for the first time on film in the theater, which is the best way you should see anything, but also get to meet so many people, and also just see because the thing that I love so much about it is it's a community, whether you have these people who's regulars who come in all the time, so you know the same people, and you can kind of guess what movies they're going to come to see. And there's also the people who hang out afterwards and talk. And so it's this thing that's going to see a film, yes, but more than just that. It's also film lovers uniting, which I think is the most important thing about cinema, full stop.
Yeah, I think, of course, on this show we talk about physical media, but me and Andrew are both huge theater goer fans. Like we agree with you. That's the optimal way to watch any of the films that we want to watch. And, but I do look at physical media, collecting Blu-rays and things like that as almost an extension of that in a way, because it's like we're preserving something, we're preserving the films, but also, with all the special features and things that are added into them, it's that context that your guests that are at your screenings are giving to an audience. Right. And so that's why I love both. Both coincide for me, but of course, like going to the cinema is just such some people just don't get it. I don't know. They can't. Maybe I think it's just because people.
I feel sad for those people.
Yeah. I think what it is just people over time have decided that movies are for particular reasons. They don't look. It's gotten so much more varied of why people watch movies. It used to be more almost. Everybody kind of was on the same page. Now it seems like there's so much more other distractions you can get involved in that movies are not,
Yeah, I mean, there's so much TV going on, and you can fall into your niche where you don't have to do the same thing that everybody else does. But I think, and I think this is great that you have this podcast where you're taking people through and doing essentially what you would do if you're working in a video store, right? That was my first job. I worked in a video store in Las Vegas, and that's the point of going to a video store, right? Is you have these clerks who are assumedly, more well educated than you are, who can give you recommendations. And that's part of the same thing I'm talking about at the New Beverly, this kind of being able to be introduced to things that would be outside of your wheelhouse by people who know more than you do. The thing that worries me about it's so, something I talk about in Out of Print is like every format change, you lose titles. Yeah. Right. So like not everything went from 35 to VHS or VHS to DVD or DVD to Blu-ray or like whatever comes next. So the amount of those films that slip through the cracks are the ones that tug at the heart. Right. There's like, but what about these? They're just as important. And I think that that's something that I just have to come to terms with as media moves forward and advances, that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so much to unpack, but in the documentary Out of Print, which for those of you listening is available to watch streaming through various places. I know Tubi has it, Plex has
TV,
it,
Amazon.
Roku
Amazon Prime
TV,
and Canopy.
It's streaming everywhere. I recommend everybody to kind of check it out when you can, because it's accessible and it's going to be relevant to, I think, to a lot of movie fans in general, because there's a specific, and what is touched on in the documentaries specifically is that there's a going to a repertory theater and going to a multiplex is a vastly different atmosphere, experience, and things. And I don't think a lot of people know that because there aren't a lot of repertory theaters, outside of Los Angeles, or if you go to New York or Boston. Here, I know even just here, and Steven in general, we've always talked, we don't have
Not
that
really.
option really
No.
here at all.
Is there a Rocky Horror Picture Show though?
Well, I was gonna say I do have an indie. I have like a small kind of nonprofit indie theater in our city nearby, probably about 20 minutes away, that does like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. They do some other ones.
Because I feel like as long as you have a Rocky Horror, you're golden.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, I went to go see Rocky Horror for the first time at 12, which is far too young for Rocky Horror, but just at the good age to blow my mind because I'd never been in a theater where you were interacting with the film and you weren't just passively sitting and watching. And that interaction just cracked my mind wide open. It was amazing. And so I think that the thing I liked about the New Beverly was it felt like that Rocky Horror excitement all the time. Right. And that's such a specific feeling where you have a midnight movie where people you have to make an effort to come out because it's late. So they want to be here. And that feeling is the best feeling ever. So having that feeling all the time is just incredible. And like watching a horror movie by yourself on your laptop, but versus watching it in a movie theater with hundreds of people, it's a completely different experience. And I feel like I wish I could. Everybody in the world, I wish I could give them that. Okay, we're going to watch it here, and then we're going to watch it here, and we're going to watch how your experience changes.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to bottle it up and really be able to really make them feel it. But I don't have the similar experience of a repertory, but I worked at a nice like a little small privately owned 4-screen theater here where I live, and we actually, I remember when the transition that is shown in the documentary, where we went from film to digital, and it was very quick. Like it was like, we got to get this. Apparently, we're going to have to switch to digital, or they're not going to send us movies anymore.
You were showing mainstream.
Yeah, we were showing
stuff,
mainstream stuff,
which is even more. It's a different kind of context of what was shown in the documentary, where studios were doing 35 millimeter prints of older films, and you, Steven, I remember you telling me that like they weren't going to send you.
They weren't going to send us like the Disney. Disney stuff's a big draw.
Yeah, like the big, like the stuff that multiplexes make their money on. The mainstream films.
And that kind of sneakiness of it was the part that I wanted to highlight because I think they wanted no one to say anything, and I think that was the audience won't notice, and I think that was kind of underhanded. And I was like, but wait, this is like a big cultural change. We've been using film for 100 years. And you're asking all of these cinemas, some of which are kind of in dire straits anyway, to now make this gigantic financial obligation. And then also we're going to be upgrading and you have to pay every time.
Yeah. I mean, we know that with so many different technologies that we deal with other than outside of movies, our phones tend to have to be updated every couple years because they upgrade the software, which does not fit the hardware anymore, and then it's like runs slower, and so the theaters don't make money off of ticket sales. I mean, it's about concession and getting people in, and if you can't get the movies that they want to see in, well, you're losing all that business, and it was a sad time. They ended up being able to make that transfer, but it really killed them in the long run.
Financially, it's difficult because especially if the this digital projection technology is relatively new. I mean, it's only about 10, 15 year range in terms of using digital projectors versus old school film projectors. So anytime there's a brand new technology that shows up, it's always at its most expensive. Like I remember when DVD players came out, 20 years ago, and they were like $1,000 a piece. Now they're like $50. It's just like insane. Steven, you have a product that showed up there. Explain it to the people.
I took this from the theater before it closed down, and it was one of the actual film projector lenses,
right?
I had to take before it was gone.
Gigantic.
That, and I took one of the film cutters, one of the splicers from upstairs.
Ooh,
so I have one of them.
Those are fun.
Yeah. I used to do it.
Nice.
I didn't never, I used to build up films every once in a while. I was an assistant, so I didn't have to necessarily I didn't run the place all the time, but every once in a while in a crunch, I had to put together some movies, and I miss it. I miss the
and it's a skill.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's kind of I don't want to say a long lost skill now, but if it's not something that's used a lot, It's not
It's
taught
not.
a
It's
lot.
not as much
So-
of a. It's not as crucial for like a cinema that was showing mainstreams. You know, like the repertories, you got to have like special training. They're like top notch. Like you can't mess up crap when you're talking about these movies that are
especially if it's like archival
like
stuff you're getting from the
private
studio.
collection stuff.
I'm assuming those have to be
Yeah.
handled with delicate
Yeah.
hands.
So yeah, I would have messed somebody's film up. They would have killed me.
This is the
No.
last.
No. Yeah, because
Yeah.
out of print, I have a 35 millimeter print, but I have
Yeah.
one print, right? So if anybody messes it
Yeah.
up, that's
So
that's it.
do you keep that in your place?
I had it in my house and it was driving me crazy because I'm like, I should not be here. This is not the right environment. So I emailed the Academy and asked if they would take it in their archive, and they said sure.
That's
so
awesome.
It now lives at the Academy Film Archive alongside every other film ever in the perfect temperature,
That's
humidity, and it
amazing.
will live there forever. So feel
Nice.
good about that. I could check that off the
I
bucket
thought
list.
you were gonna say, I thought you were gonna say Quentin Tarantino, like because it is a movie about the cinema that he runs now.
It is.
So,
That's true.
so I thought you were gonna be like, yeah, Tarantino just took it. He was like, yeah, cool, I got you. No.
No.
Well, that's an interesting kind of transitional connection because he is the owner. Well, he's the owner of the building that houses.
He's now the owner outright.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So
and
during the making of the movie, he was just a landlord, but now he owns it outright.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. Because the I'm assuming a lot of things have changed, since the film came out, 2014 to now. The world is a vastly different place in many, many ways. And so a lot of things have changed. And I remember speaking of Quentin Tarantino, I remember when wasn't it Hateful Eight came out? They did the road show like traveling when they were showing it in I think 70 millimeter.
Yeah, I went
And
to one of them.
theaters-
I went to one of them.
Yeah, and theaters didn't have the equipment anymore to show the movie in 70 millimeter. So they had to like get projectors like out of storage to do it, and they would break down because they hadn't been used in so many years. So there's a whole kind of maintenance thing when it comes to film projecting and all those things that if you don't know what you're doing and if you don't keep up with it, it's just kind of things can go south. But it's all very interesting because it's the further we move away from film and film projection, I think the more people don't realize its importance in film, the difference in film. And you touched a little bit on it where it was digital versus film when it comes to the aesthetics of it all. And I feel like that's a conversation that's still kind of ongoing, Steve. I remember it was a hot button issue.
I love the part in the movie where you were talking to
while
Ryan
ago.
Johnson and it showed it on film and it showed it on digital, and you're like, yeah, that film side looks way better.
Yeah,
There's
God
a
bless.
different aesthetic.
God
Yeah.
bless Ryan Johnson because he just started talking about that, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. You're talking about exactly what I want. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I love that. And we were able to shoot a couple interviews on both 35 and digital. So I think Joe Carnahan, Joe Dante, and Ryan Johnson and Noah Segan. I mean, and they're just so much fun together because they're best friends in real life. So it's just you goofing around with your best friend, which I think, I wanted to make. And this is the same as when I worked at the New Beverly Hills. I never wanted the Q&As to feel formal.
Yeah.
I never wanted to sit in a director's chair with a glass of water and like do the whole thing. Like, let's sit on the edge of the stage and just be cool. And so I think because I knew all of the people that I interviewed from the New Beverly and knew them prior, it felt a lot more intimate and not like more like a conversation and less like a interview.
So other than all that, being able to meet the filmmakers and stuff, what's some of your favorite parts about working at a movie theater?
It's talking to people about the
Just
film.
talking movies,
and making people feel welcome, I think, was the big thing that I always, because I think the New Beverly is such a place for outsiders and weirdos, which are my people. And I feel like sometimes if you're an outsider, you really feel that you don't belong somewhere. And I think feeling somewhere you belong, but you can go alone. You don't have to talk to anybody if you don't want to, but you are still in a crowd of people who know you as well. And I think, where I got to work with my friends, which is really fun. And then just exploring new movies, because everybody who would, if you pick people to program, everybody's going to pick something totally different. And I think the thing that was cool about the programming series that we did is that it would give people incentive to see a movie more than they normally would, because Joe Dante recommended it, which he's doing, of course, with Trailers from Hell, which is such an incredible site. And, he's such a genius person and probably knows more about filmmaking and Hollywood and movies than anybody I've ever met. His knowledge is insane. It just comes out. I can't even tell you. He's a wonderful man.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and when it comes to like the filmmakers and all that stuff, the one thing that is great when it comes to those interviews and just kind of them just talking about movies in general, you realize that at the heart of it all is that filmmakers are, they're film fans.
Mhm.
They're cinephiles. That it kind of pulls back the veil of this kind of like, oh, they must be some type of elite category of people when they started probably out like many of us, going to the theater, watching movies, whether it comes to VHS or whatever format. A lot of them are actually movie collectors as well, which
Mhm.
is also
Yeah.
I always find that extremely fascinating because it's like they're doing the same type of stuff that I'm doing, that we are doing when it comes to like collecting their favorite movies or movies they've never seen. And it's always cool to come across people like that and to realize you have this connection with kind of these people that you've revered for so
Yeah,
long.
it's sure it makes them human because they talk about like I saw this movie when I was a kid on TV and it changed my life about movies. And sometime hearing somebody explain their obsessions makes their movies make more sense. And you go, okay, I see this in what they're saying, which was so neat. And watching the enthusiasm, like I remember it's just such a random one, but we showed Zapped. I don't know if you've ever seen
Mm.
Zapped. It's Scott Baio, and it's like Carrie like played for laughs. So he has like telekinetic abilities, but he's like popping girls shirts open and stuff. It's really silly. And so Eli Roth was showing Zapped because Zapped was one of his favorite movies when he was a kid, and Scott Baio was there. And like the way that watching Eli Roth lose his mind over Scott Baio made me love him so much. It's like, oh, look at him go. He's so excited. And this is like a duo you would never think to see side by side. But in the context of this movie, it was just like so important to him.
Yeah, it's just like that moment in the documentary where
No, you
Edgar
didn't
Wright
mention it.
meets
Yep, I was just gonna
meets
say
David
it. Stop
Lynch,
reading my
and he's
mind.
just like
That would be the exact reaction I would have. Or I wouldn't be able to talk. It's
Yeah.
either babbling or not being able to talk.
Yeah, I talk in the documentary about Sam Rockwell.
yeah,
Blew
yeah.
my mind so hard I couldn't talk.
Yes.
And I also had one with there's an actor named Donovan Leitch. He's the singer Donovan's son, and he did bunch of stuff in the '80s. I'm a big fan, and we did a birthday double feature for me that was a movie called The In Crowd from '88. It's like Hairspray with a boy protagonist.
Uh,
It's like about being on like a teenage dance show, taking away the racial John Waters amazingness, but still good. And The Blob, which he's also in. And Donovan Leitch came. His sister's Ione Skye as well. And so Donovan Leitch came, and we were supposed to introduce the movie before. And he came over, and I was like, "Hey, everybody, Donovan Leitch." And Donovan Leitch came down, and he kissed my cheek, and my mind blanked. It was the only time it ever happened, and I literally had nothing. Like I just stood there agog, and the whole audience laughed. They watched it happen, but I had to be like, "Well, come back after the movie," because like it was gone, the whole Q&A. So that was my one time that it actually ruined my Q&A.
Yeah, and so not only have you been doing, you did all that stuff, working at the New Beverly, and where did the filmmaking part start to like? I know we're backtracking a little bit, but where did the filmmaking, the wanting to get more into that, start for you?
So I've been an actor since I was a little kid,
Yeah.
and I used to like direct little plays and stuff when I was smaller. And so I've been directing stage stuff, but I'd never directed a film.
Yeah.
And it was really the impetus of getting a letter from the studio saying, we're not going to give you 35 millimeter prints anymore. That I was like, well, if nobody else is going to say something, then I guess I will. And Keanu Reeves did Side by Side, which is a great
Oh,
movie.
I love that. Yeah.
But
yeah.
but
Yeah, I love
his
it.
movie it's more about filmmaking, what you're shooting on, and more in minds about what you're watching on. So they're kind of the same side of the same flips. No, different sides of the same coin. Yes, that's what I'm going for. So I ran a Kickstarter campaign for Out of Print, and I was amazingly lucky enough to get the money. And there we are. So it was this kind of amazing thing where I asked Panavision if I could shoot on 35 millimeter and Kodak, and they doing this thing, but it was really me making my first movie for the first time by myself. And I was so lucky to be able to make a film where I had no one telling me what to do. So for better or for worse, if you like it or you don't, like that's the vision I had at that time. And of course I would look at it now and like, I would change everything, but the film that I wanted to make then. So I was lucky enough to have that, but to learn how to make a movie. Okay, you're raising the money, and now you're shooting the movie, and now you're cutting the movie, and now you're distributing the movie, and now you're playing the movie, and like doing all of that. And almost all of it, of course I had help with cast and crew and, everything, but by myself more or less, and then learning how to, because a lot of the places it played because it played around the world in different film archives and universities and all this stuff. And a lot of it was just me emailing people and be like, hey, will you show my movie? And I think that a lot of people think that all of this, filmmaking stuff is this kind of elite thing. And I'm really just like, just email people and ask. They can say no, but they might say yes. And, if you email enough people, you're going to get this percentage of people saying yes. So we got to play in amazing places because of that. And then, got distribution to be on Amazon Prime and that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I tell people, like, with this podcast, because we've had some really awesome guests on, and most recently, we had like Eddie Muller on from TCM, and it's like how did you get Eddie Muller? I was like, I just emailed him. Some of these guys, they want to interact with you. Like they're not trying to hide behind anything. They actually care about interacting with their fans. So it's like, you just get lucky.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I have two podcasts. I have Horror Movie Survival Guide, and I have Joe Dwowski, which is all about.
I was going to get to that next. Yeah.
Okay, sorry if I'm skipping ahead, but we interviewed for Frank Povich for Jodorowsky's Dune, and we asked him how he got Jodorowsky, and he's like, I emailed him, and I was like, are you kidding me?
That's all I have to do.
Jodorowsky.
That's all it took.
He's so close and yet so far.
Yeah. Yeah, can that work for David Lynch? Can we do that to David? No, I'm just kidding. He's impossible.
I don't think he has. He may not have. Now
I will say I am lucky enough to get close to, in the sense of like knowing somebody. Like, because when I went to the Telluride Film Festival 5 years ago, I met Laura Dern. So I was almost there. I was like, where's David? I was actually looking for David Lynch. I was like, is David Lynch near you? Is he nearby? Not filming you? Is he filming you from a distance? I don't know.
He could be anywhere.
Yeah.
The entire time he was standing in that theater in the New Beverly, I just had my hands clamped over my mouth in shock. I couldn't process what was happening. So crazy. And it was like Edgar says in the movie, like he like swept in and he was in there for a few minutes and then he swept out and he was just like vanished.
It's just, you see, it's like in the movies, you see the wind and some like tumbleweed goes by and you're like, huh.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Just going out to those red curtains, those infamous red curtains.
It's amazing.
Ethereal.
Yeah. So please get us into the podcast. You have the two podcasts that you do, and how that started and who you do it with and all that stuff.
So I have a podcast named Horror Movie Survival Guide. I've been doing it for 5 years. So it started out because my best friend Marion in college had never seen a horror movie before. And I had already, as I mentioned, been a junkie since I was like 11. So I was like, oh, haha, we're going to get into this great world. So I showed her Nightmare on Elm Street, which is my favorite. And I told her, okay, this is my favorite. If you don't like this, we don't have to watch anything else. But she loved it. And the thing that she loved about it was Nancy, and about Nancy being this very smart final girl who's figuring out who's going to best the monster in the end. So she said, is this a trope? And I said, yeah. She's like, okay, well, if we watch enough horror movies, then maybe we'll learn how to survive if we're ever in this kind of situation to be the final girl. So I went to school at UC Irvine, and there was a video store called Gold Star Video that was near our house that we made our senior year. We're like, okay, every horror movie in the horror movie section of this video store, we're going to watch every single one, and keep a notebook. So we did, and there's so dorky and just a rating system and quotes and all this kind of stuff. So then fast forward, and my other best friend, Terry, she worked in a place and they were looking for people to do horror podcasts. And she was like, I know some ladies. So pitched it, and they said, okay. So the original concept was we were going back through the notebook and rewatching the movies we had watched in college. And then Marion stepped away from the podcast about 2 years in, and Terry stepped in. And so now, and Terry was a complete horror virgin. And so like now it's her learning the ropes of how horror works. And the first movie that I showed Terry was Hellraiser. And I was like, that's going pretty hard. I was a little nervous it might break her. But Terry, and she'll tell you this, I'm not doubting her in any way, that her type is creepy uncles. That's her deal. So as soon as Frank opened the door, she went, oh, and I went, oh
no, the
ultimate creepy uncle. I never really thought about it, but he totally is. So she was on board, and she's like hot for Pinhead.
Yeah, that's a hard one to go in as a first. Yeah.
She got to the Jesus wept, and I was like, this is where it all comes out. And she laughed at it, man. I was like, man,
what a reaction.
I've never seen anybody laugh at it. Like, that's hardcore.
I mean, honestly, even Nightmare on Elm Street, though is one of my favorites as well. I would have probably started with Halloween first, because I feel like that's a little bit less like surreal, and like it's kind of straightforward. It's like it's
sure, but it's just your personal preference, right?
Of course,
because
no,
like right. I think A Nightmare on Elm Street's a better
Oh,
film than Halloween.
I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, if I'm thinking
Yeah.
about my friend and I'm like, what would be easy if they'd not never watched horror movies before? What would be like the easiest way in? Maybe where my
See, but that's sure, but I feel like that's with any genre, right?
Sure.
I'm like, you know, I also love musicals. That's another one of my favorite genres. So I'm like, oh, I could pick an easy musical for you, or I could pick the musical I want to like blow your mind.
What's
with,
that?
Right?
What is
like
it?
One of the
What
other.
is it?
Well, I mean, like, okay, so there's like a trifecta of movies that musicals that came out in 1980 that I'm famous for showing to people that they go into descending order of madness. So you start with Xanadu, right, which is 1980, which is beautiful. You can show it to anybody. There's no violence. It's all beautiful, happiness, Gene Kelly, loveliness, right? I adore that movie with no irony. And then you have Can't Stop the Music, which is the 1980 Village People musical, which is not great, right? It's like, it's trying hard, and I love many things about it, but it, you know, ultimately, then if you're going for craziness, if I was launching someone right into the stratosphere, you go straight for The Apple, which is 1980, which is one of the craziest musicals of all time, which is Canadian kind of sort of Adam and Eve biblical allegory, but also like disco-tastic and it's set in the future of 1994. Amazing.
Okay.
So I would recommend all of those movies. By the way,
that's why I wanted
you should watch them in that order.
Oh, that's why I wanted you to tell us, because I want everybody to get this so that they can go and do that.
Yeah, everybody can know what the insanity is. They can all partake in it.
Definitely.
Please do.
And so the other one you said, Jodorowsky.
Jodorowsky.
Oh yes. So So I love Jodorowsky, and there's a collective called Cinema Smorgasbord, and they do really niche film podcasts. So I had guests on their show called You Don't Know Dick, which is about Dick Miller, because I fucking love Dick Miller, and we talked about After Hours, which I also adore. And I was like, hey, we should do a show together. And they said, what would you want to do? And I was like, we should totally do Jodorowsky. So we do. So it's called Jodorowsky, and it follows his entire career. So when we started out, we were just going to do the films, but we've started adding the comic books, which is really fun because comic books are not my genre necessarily, and my medium. And so, but getting into it through Jodorowsky really helps, because I can see in his work, I can see him in there, and I can be like, okay, I can see it in his voice. I can see what it would look like if he was directing it. And so that really makes it different, because we read through the entire InCal series, which is enormous, but it was so great. I was like, I can see this being a Jodorowsky movie. If you gave Jodorowsky all the money in the world and said, go, and please do give Jodorowsky all the money in the world, for Christ's sake, just let him.
I still want him to make his Dune film, even though we have Dune movies now.
Yeah.
I still want that, because my introduction to Jodorowsky was the Dune documentary.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And going in from that perspective, just kind of getting a behind the scenes, I guess, view of just like his mindset as a person and a filmmaker combined is a very interesting perspective.
And you see how he could persuade anybody to do anything, right? You just like, you watch his enthusiasm. Yeah, you did. And like, I want him to be my guru 100%. I was like, I will do anything for you, sir. You tell me, you know more, you know so much.
And he was, so far ahead of his time when it came to what his concept of science fiction would be.
Sure.
Is kind of just, beyond space and time, beyond fantasy, and this combination of both. He was thinking, in almost a Star Warsian type of language before Star Wars became a thing.
Right. And I think that I often think about this alternate universe, I think, which they very briefly touch on in the documentary, which is, if Dune had been made by Jodorowsky, it would have been essentially a Star Wars-esque kind of huge sci-fi blockbuster with this added spiritual element and this added, kind of intelligence, and what does it mean, and like the greater universe, which I think, like, what if Star Wars had been that? Not that I'm a spiritual person, but like a Jodorowsky kind of spiritualism, where it's like asking yourself, who are you really, and what is it for? And like these bigger existential questions, which Star Wars does not address. So I think that it would be an interesting alternate timelines, like, where is society if Dune had been as big as Star Wars is, and like brought this kind of extra level to it.
Yeah, I recently went down a whole Dune rabbit hole when it came to because with the new movie coming out, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna finally read the Frank Herbert Dune series.
I just did as well. I just read the first Dune.
Yeah, it is in depth, to say the least. Very in depth.
Are you gonna read more than the first book?
Oh, I've read like the first 4, I think, so far.
They
get weirder and more wild as it goes along. At one point, in each book, I mean, this is kind of not really a book podcast, but once you get past like the first two books, you start jumping like thousands of years in terms of time
Oh,
in the Dune
interesting.
world, and it gets very, contextually complicated in terms of like everything. Like it expands into places you did not expect,
I mean
into
that's
wild
cool.
places.
I found the book to be quite inaccessible, and
Yes, yeah,
I think it's purposely inaccessible to kind of call out people who aren't going to pay attention enough to this world, and I find that commendable. But I'm a big Stephen King nerd doing this, Stephen King
mm,
adaptation. So I read Stephen King all the time, and going from someone who's so conversational and bringing you into the world to this kind of opposite of that, where they're using these terms that you don't understand, and it reminded me of reading Clockwork Orange, where when you're first reading it, there's all these terms and this slang that you just like, I don't
yes.
know what that means. And then once you get past it and get into the rhythm of it, you're like, oh, okay, now you're on board. But it's this
I,
kind of culling out of, are you going to really read this book? Do you want to dedicate yourself to it?
Yeah, that's actually a good transition into kind of what you're doing now, but also, I mean, this is going to be a little bit of a book podcast here for a second because Stephen King is also someone I've started reading over the last several years because
Oh,
I never got to do it before, but I wanted to do it sequentially for
oh,
the most
great.
part.
Okay, so
So I wanted to
where are
start
we
from
up
like
to?
his novels. Well, I kind of started out that way, then I kind of jumped around a little bit. So I
Okay.
started off with Carrie, of course, and then Salem's Lot,
Hmm.
The Shining, and then I skipped to Doctor Sleep because I wanted to read the sequel, and then I
Okay.
started reading the Dark Tower series, and I think
Yeah.
I'm on the fourth or fifth
Okay.
book in the Dark Tower series now. But it's just Stephen King, and I think obviously you'll know this as well. His world building is immense.
Yeah.
Like you don't just get a story with Stephen King, you get an entire world with like backstory and histories of characters that aren't really part of the main plot. They're just there to fill in the context of the world.
Yeah.
And that's why his stuff is so detailed.
Hmm.
And that's why it's so fascinating to me that all of his stuff has been adapted so many times because it's how do you streamline so much context
Right.
into movies, into, this medium where things have to be relatively streamlined. So
Yeah.
obviously that transitions into what you're working on currently.
Yeah. So I, as I mentioned, I've been a Stephen King fan since I was a kid, and then I realized 5 years ago that I'd never read the Dark Tower series, and I'm like, it's his masterwork. What am I doing? So I started to read that. Got to book 7. There was a very crucial turning point in the book, and I couldn't turn the page. I was too terrified. I was like, I want to prolong the moment, so decided to read everything related to the Dark Tower series, which I didn't realize is everything. And
Is
I was like,
vast.
it's
I'm so
everything.
confused
So
about it.
yeah.
I
So I
don't even
so
know where to start.
well, let me tell you, if you do what I did, there's some dedication involved, but it sounds like you're already dedicated. I've read everything. So now I'm on the last 100 pages of the Dark Tower, and I'm also terrified to end it. So I keep trying to like put it off because it's so good. But it really is reading everything and realizing how connected everything, because there's so much that takes place in Castle Rock, takes place in Derry, and like they're all connected. So okay, so such a big fan. Reading all of this stuff, read Night Shift, which came out in 1978. There's a story in it called "I Know What You Need," and I'm generally more of a novel person because you can get deeper into context and characters and stuff. But this short story, I was like, ooh, this short story, I like it a lot. And so he has a program called Dollar Baby, so you can buy the rights to certain short stories for $1 for a year. So the contract says you have to be nonprofit, non-broadcast, so you can't make money, and it has to be 45 minutes or under. But then you can pretty much do anything you want. There are no stipulations on the creative side. You can like take a little bit of the story and do something else. It's up to you, anything you want. So I tried to make mine very, very faithful. So I asked for the rights for I Know What You Need, and they gave them to me. And then I asked, it takes place at the University of Maine. So I emailed the University of Maine and asked if they could film there. And they said, come on down. So we ended up filming this in the exact locations from the story. So the library he mentions, the dorms he mentions are the real places. So I set it in 1976. We're staying in the actual dorm that Stephen King stayed in. I stayed in his room that he stayed in, which is not like amazingly, incredibly crazy. And the rooms look the same. It still looks 70s. So it looks super cool. So we filmed in July 2021, and it went fantastically. And we are nearly done with post-production. It's a very long process, but my brother, Peter, is doing the music. He did the music for Out of Print as well. And I'm so excited because the craziest thing about this whole Dollar Baby program is there's a caveat in the contract that you have to send a copy of the finished film to Stephen King to watch, because he wants to see what people do with his work, which he doesn't have to do. And he doesn't have to do this anyway, right? Like clearly the dollar bit gives that away. But for him, like the version of his story, I can guarantee you that the version of his story, this story in his head, and the version of the story in my head are not the same version of the story. And while I have been, as faithful as I can as far as doing the dialogue and stuff, there's also my brain. I'm kind of weird. Like this story, is essentially about a boy who has using mental powers to manipulate a girl. That's essentially the gist. But for me, it's exciting because you have someone with powers, and when you look at Stephen King, you look at The Shining, or you look at Carrie or Farsighted, where you have these powers that are immense and enormous, and they're doing these incredible things. But he has powers and just wants to make one girl fall in love with him. And like, there's something so disturbingly, horribly, romantically fucked up about it that I really like. This is really interesting. And like, why is it so, because if the story if the internet exists, the story would fall apart. So that's partially why it takes place in 1976, but also just aesthetically, like my groovy world.
Yeah. And so, because like you said, everything kind of looked like the 70s, you had a lot of built in just production value there. So it really came down to just like kind of making sure you can tune in your aesthetics, cinematography wise, and then the clothes and the hair. You gotta get the hair right.
Oh yeah, and I had my hands in every single piece of it, and a lot of the set dressing came from my house. I just packed it up and sent it to Maine, and there it is. And that's kind of the fun part as well, and getting to see the characters come to life in the way that I see in my head, because it really, what is. For me, again, this is a movie that I'm making where I don't have anybody else stepping into, and I think for me, the thing I like most, the filmmakers I like most are the filmmakers who I can say, that's a Wes Anderson movie. Yeah. This is a, Jodorowsky movie. Like I can tell watching it, this is their voice completely. So like that to me is the most precious thing about filmmaking. And I feel sad when I see filmmakers that I know have a very loud voice get watered down by corporate filmmaking and whatnot. So this movie is my vision of this. The aesthetic is After School Special meets Brian De Palma.
Okay.
And this is how I see the story. And, and if people are like, what the fuck is that? That's fine. But I didn't want to make a straight creepy Stephen King story, because I feel like it's so done. Like, because until things turn bad, and they will, because it's Stephen King, but until it turns bad, like, let's make it bright and beautiful and colorful, and not like the average dark, creepy Stephen King story.
And I think that's something that's really important about this program he's got going. And I'm sure that's why he wants the film sent to him, because he wants to see if he can find a diamond in the rough. Find somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the whole thing with Frank Darabont, right? That's how he found Frank Darabont, is that he had done a Dollar Baby.
Yeah,
and that's why he's like, oh, you do Green Mile, you do Mist, and it's like, of course, that's every Dollar Baby's dream, right? Is like Stephen King is like, hey, kid, you're
right? Gonna do my next movie.
Sure, of course you want him to like it, but I think for me, having the end game of making a movie where I know he will watch it is insane, but is also like, I just need to make it made for me and him.
Yeah. And
really, if anybody else likes it, that's gravy. But I'm just, and I feel like at least he'll watch it and he'll see the University of Maine and be like, hey,
well, I mean, and really what's good about this too is, you did the documentary, but this is a narrative film. So you're also working on your craft, and you're developing that voice, your own voice as a visual film, because that's, you can tell it, you can write a script and everything like that, but it's the visuals. Telling a story visually is a whole other like skill. Like, it's writing and visual storytelling is different. And then of course the editing is where the movie really gets made, and that's where you're at right now. Yeah. So it's great that you were able to do this to help. It's a cool way to do it where you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself as a writer. Like, you got great material already, and then you just got to kind of...
it's not pressure to like put in scenes of your writing in between Stephen King's writing. Yeah. That's not pressure at all.
It is, but it's fun. It's a fun exercise. It's a fun exercise to be able to take somebody else's thing, and especially when it's being a short. It's a short, so you're not thinking, you don't have to think so erratically about how big the story needs to be or small the story needs. You just kind of do it, and then how much was the initial cut? Was it like an hour, 2 hours of footage? Was it like?
So So it's the time limit on the contract is 45
Okay.
minutes. The movie is 44:59.
Ooh.
So
Wow.
I
You did
used almost every second that they gave me. And it's really long for a short. And I said, that's okay. That's what I want to make. And that's fine. And I think the original cut was about an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had to cut about 15 minutes out. But I just got to the place I'm like, I don't see, because this story is so it's like a pack of dominoes. Like every scene leads to the next one, and they're setting up what's going to happen in the end. And so it's really hard to cut out stuff. And, and I have a lot of filmmaker friends, and a lot of the recommendations like, oh, make it 10 minutes surrender. It's easier for a film program to festival, like to program. I'm like, I can't do it. Impossible. There's no way I can tell the story in under 10 minutes. They're so detailed. And to give this really cool short story its due, and, making sure that the actors are fantastic and are, that looks on par. And we were able to get a camera and lenses from Panavision, which was amazing. And they knew it was set in the 70s. So they're giving us lenses that would give it that look. And it's just super, super cool. And like a dream come true, but yeah, no pressure, because I can't sell it. Right. So it's not like I'm going into this trying to find distribution. It's just like, this is the movie I wanted to make. Do you like it?
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I wish I would have been more ambitious when I was a little younger.
Well, you know what? You know what the key is? You email them and you ask, because that's literally all I did.
Yeah.
If you wanted to do it, Otter Baby, you could go on StephenKing.com today.
At this point right now, I think I'm just got too much going on.
Well, a baby.
Yeah. That may take up some time.
Well, what I'm going to do, because I got a friend that does film stuff too, and he's working on a short of his own, and he told me the other day, was like, hey, Steven, I know you're busy, but you should write some stuff, and we should work, so maybe I can get him to film something, and I can just write things. That's a lot. I can do that anywhere. So,
Yeah.
Right.
But Julia, I love everything you got going on here. I can't wait. Is there going to be a way for anybody else other than Stephen King to watch this movie once it's done?
It's so if you were a backer of my Indiegogo, 100% yes.
Okay.
Film festival people can watch it. Private screenings can watch it. It's supposed to be non-broadcast, so I'm not supposed to put it up online. But if we maybe we could work something out.
That would be,
you guys, me. I would like the trailer should be coming out soon.
Yeah.
I think the trailer will really give you the flavor of what I'm going for, which is a very specific flavor that most people will be like, well, what is this?
I can't wait. You might think that you're turning us off. You're not. It's
you're playing right into my wheelhouse.
That's great, man. I can't wait. If we can work something out, I'd love to check it out. Definitely.
Yeah, but it's fun. I mean, Stephen King adaptations are fun no matter what, because everybody sees the story differently.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, creators, that should be how creators all are. I mean, like, that's why somebody like a David Lynch I always respect him, because he's somebody that doesn't want to explain his movies. He wants you to explain the movie to him. What did you see?
Yeah, completely, because everybody sees something different. I just went to go see Everything Everywhere All at Once with my parents.
I want to see that movies. So bad.
Okay, so it's amazing. I cannot tell you enough about it. I could tell you, we go on about it, but I won't. But I will tell you this: after the movie, my mom and I looked at each other, and we both went, "Wow!" And my dad went, "Meh," and I went, "Really? Oh my God, you watched that and you went meh?" So like the fact that we were sitting side by side, and like what he's watching and what I'm watching, not the same movie.
Yeah,
right.
Fascinating.
It can take one moment in a movie where somebody finally they're like, I'm done really paying attention to this.
Yep.
It happens all the time.
My dad's that guy.
Yeah.
Some people are very easy to check out when it comes to movies or TV or something.
When we went to go see, he went to go see Cruella, and he got so fixated on, there was one car chase, because it takes place in England. There was one car chase where they were in an American style car with a steering wheel on the other side. And he was so like, how did they get that car? Why was it there? They're in England. That doesn't make any sense. And I was like, really, Dad? That one thing? And he was like, nope, incorrect. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I know some of them people.
Yeah, I was saying,
my wife is like that sometimes.
Nitpicky. Oh, okay. To me, I just let that stuff kind of go.
It's fine.
You know what I mean? Because like little stuff like that, it's like a speck of dust in a very large space,
But
for the
I
most
think
part.
it goes both ways, right?
Right.
Because I feel like, okay, so we were talking about Halloween briefly. Let me go back to Halloween. There's a moment in Halloween that sticks with me in this way, where I can't get past it, where we have Michael Myers, we don't really know his deal is, ultimate evil, et cetera, et cetera. There's the moment where he comes in, where he's going to kill PJ Souls, where he's in the sheet that and he has the glasses over top of them. And I'm like,
Yes.
what is that? What is he doing? Why does he have the glasses on top? Is he trying to be funny? Is he trying to trick her? Like, what exactly? I don't really, it's such an Michael Myers moment that doesn't really happen again, anything like that in the rest of the series. And it trips me up. I'm like, I don't get what that is. It's something in his consciousness that I wish they would delve into. It just I don't know. So there you go.
No,
There's
no,
an
I see
example
it.
of
That is
me.
that's fascinating because he always has sometimes he has a sense of flair just for the sake of having a sense of flair. Like the way he'll arrange bodies so that when people walk in, it'll come swinging down and hit somebody. Like, did he plan that out or is that just coincidence?
Yeah, so how smart is he? And like, what exactly is his psychological game? I'm never quite clear. And I think that's why I prefer a Freddy Krueger where I'm like, I get you, you get your deal.
Yeah.
As opposed
Freddy
to Michael
Freddy Krueger will literally tell you everything.
Yeah. Well, before we move into the Blu-ray announcements, I do want to ask you on that note with Freddy Krueger. Are you a Stranger Things watcher? Do you like?
I am. Yeah. I haven't seen the new season though, so don't say.
Well,
anything.
I won't tell you anything about the plot, but I don't know if you know that are.
Won't say anything,
okay,
Steve.
fine. I won't say.
Don't tell me anything. I mean anything.
Okay. It's good. We'll just say it's good.
I'm excited.
It's
I
great.
love Stranger Things. I was actually just on the Losers podcast. We did an episode all about the second season of Stranger Things. So I'm a big super fan. But I'm also like spoiler. I cannot tell you how much to me spoilers bother me. My ex-boyfriend, ruined a very key plot point in Dark Tower accidentally, and I cannot tell you how furious.
Oh man,
how furious! Like so, my favorite way to see a movie is I know nothing. I've seen the poster. I know nothing else. Like that's what I love.
Well, you said it. You said it was an X, so I understand. I think that was the moment where it was over right there, right now.
yeah, exactly.
You just
no, I stay away from trailers as much as I can, unless I'm in a theater and I can't escape it. I won't watch it.
I'm with you. I've that's something that's happened over time for me, but the more I've kind of gotten away from a lot of. I mean, like I watch mainstream movies, but not as much as I used to. I'm more focused on like collecting things that I've never seen that from years ago. So I'm not watching as much stuff that is just coming out. I'm waiting for it to come to home video and deciding. I do use streaming. I use streaming as a way to check stuff out, and then specifically new things, and then move on. But it's hard to. I don't know where I was going with that point, but I lost my mind.
Clearly.
Yeah. So let's get away from that. I'll remember it 5 minutes from now. But Julia, like I said, excited about all of that, and I hope we can work out something. I do want to check out the movie when it's done.
Totally.
But let's get into our Blu-ray announcements for this week. Julia's going to hang out with us and see if she knows anything. We're going to test her. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that was
I
mean.
know.
That was mean.
I told her. I told her
was.
before, like, there's no problem not knowing stuff because honestly, Andrew's going to be the one that knows everything. Me, I'm going to be like, Andrew, tell us about this movie because I haven't seen it either. Like I've seen maybe like 4 of these movies. So.
Okay.
Well, I always think about when Edgar Wright used to program at the cinema that whenever we show a movie, he would always ask people who has not seen this. People would raise their hands, and a lot of times it would be a lot of people who hadn't seen it, and people would go, "Oh, boo!" And he'd go, "No, you envy these virgins. They get to watch this movie for the first time today, right. And like, there's no shame in that. They're here doing it right now. They're not the other people not watching this movie, so you give them credit. So there we are.
There you go. And Andrew, like I said, he watches a lot of these, so maybe he can and that's why like you said earlier, it's a way of like trying to maybe garnish people to look at something that they might not have thought of, and and that's why we try to watch as much as we can. And Andrew's so good at getting ready for this show, so he will guide us. Andrew, please start our guide.
I was gonna ask you, where do you want to? Let's start
Criterion.
With.
Criterion was the first out of the slates, I think.
Oh, that is the first of the week. Yeah. So that's a good place to start sequentially. So I guess we'll dive right into it. These are the September announcements from Criterion, and we have an interesting eclectic group of films, very diverse, very diverse. We have a box set in here, but starting off is the movie Takeout, the Sean Baker film. I believe this is his second feature film. We have a movie called Exotica. We have Le Sorbeau, which is a film that's been on DVD for many, many years, to the point where I believe the DVD was out of print.
I think it's. I think it also translates to The Raven. I believe.
Yes, there's a raven on the cover, and it's the same cover as the DVD. And this is a Henri Georges Clouzot film. Chances are, I don't have to explain to people who Henri Georges Clouzot is. He did Diabolique. He did La Vérité, The Wages of Fear. Those are all films that I think people are very, very familiar with. And then we have a Martin Scorsese World Cinema Project #4 box set. And this is an interesting series because these are very underseen films. These are films that range from the various decades. They're from all over the world. And this is a box set. I think it has, how many movies in this set, Steven?
I think six films.
Six.
Yeah.
Yep. Six. And they are Sembizanga, Prisonniers de la Terre, Chest of the Wind, Munamoto, Two Girls on the Street, Kalpana, and yes, that's all. Yeah. Hopefully I didn't butcher any of those
sounded
names,
amazing.
So thank you.
Better than me.
And then we have, the most recent film, Sound of Metal, which we knew was teased a little bit ago that it was going to get a Criterion release at some point. And this is getting a 4K UHD release, where I think the others are typically DVDs, but we also have another upgrade to 4K UHD, and that is the Brian De Palma film Blowout.
And that's the one I want to talk about.
All right.
We'll start there then, because Blowout was one of like the first Criterion Blu-rays I ever bought.
Really?
So then this was like not quite my intro to Brian De Palma, because I had seen The Untouchables before. I'm pretty sure I had seen Carrie before, but I saw Blowout just not knowing anything about it. I didn't even know it was a remake to Antonioni's Blow Up, I believe. So
I mean, it's like a it's just like in the same idea, right? Because you have somebody who's solving a murder through photography, and now you have someone who's solving murders through sound,
like a spiritual, Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and we all know, for those of you familiar with Brian De Palma, he's taken a lot of influence from previous directors and people that he's big fans of, so that's appropriate. Yeah. So what is your fascination with Blowout?
I have a funny relationship with Brian De Palma because I adore him. He's really one of my top filmmakers, but only until about this movie. And then I haven't seen almost any modern De Palma. So when I mentioned De Palma, I was like, Mission Impossible. I'm like, I haven't seen it. Like I haven't. It's really like the 70s De Palma that I adore. And, Phantom of the Paradise and this movie, and his editing is incredible. His camera work is insane. And I feel like you can tell it's a Brian De Palma movie, which I love. And I think this movie in particular is the concept of this, of it going through sound, which is interesting because we have Sound of Metal coming up, right, too, which is like a sound focused film. But, you don't really get movies focused on sound that much. And this is specifically highlighting a sound man for film, which is something that you don't really get highlighted in a movie either. So this is something that, as a film watcher, people, most people don't realize who does what on a set and how films are really made. You're just given this kind of final product, be like, oh, this is this very specific job. And especially in the 70s, where you have to go out, you can't just go onto Internet Archive and find your sound, right? You have to go out and physically make this sound. I think this is one of John Travolta's best performances. I think he's incredible in this movie. I think the ending of this movie is so incredibly killer. I think Nancy Allen's great. I think John Lithgow's great. I think, just the end, kind of the big end scene is spectacular. But I think the very, very, very end is one of my favorite endings in cinema. I think it's great.
Yeah. And
it's a haunting ending.
Yeah.
I think about it to this day. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen the movie yet. But it's, Brian De Palma back in the 70s, like the vintage De Palma. That's some great stuff. For those of you who haven't seen a lot of his stuff, I think of Sisters, I think Dress to Kill. A lot of people, obviously, I think his most well-known film is probably Scarface. I just feel like that penetrated the mainstream. You know, when people have posters up that in like college dorm rooms, you know, it's kind of mainstream now. But I do kind of understand what you're saying on his more modern work. People really don't talk about Brian De Palma's modern work a lot in general. I mean, we had to watch Femme Fatale, the film that came out with Antonio Banderas and
So Rebecca Romaine.
Rebecca Romaine.
Rebecca Romaine.
And because it just got a Blu-ray release recently from Shout Factory, I think, and it's just like, yeah, it's just like that. Like, I don't think of Brian De Palma as someone who made a movie in 2002. I think of Brian De Palma as someone who made a movie in 1980, 1981.
But still
It just-
going.
Yeah, he's
And
still
I don't
going.
feel
Still
like
going. He's still
I don't
making
feel like
films.
he's slowed down any as
No,
well.
not at all. I think his film Passion, which came out in I think 2012, I thought was an underrated kind of sexual thriller that a lot of people kind of slept on.
Well,
And-
I kind of like that he's a perv, and I think like you can tell that through all these movies. That's my point of view of it. But I feel the same way about Hitchcock. It's like that it's all very tasteful and yet is all kind of pervy too.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
I
yeah.
think he's following those kind of footsteps, but then pushing it further because it's the 70s and 80s and forward.
Yeah, Hitchcock was always pushing the envelope, but he was always being very hidden about it. Rope had a lot of homoerotic, homosexual tones in it. There were the whole idea of voyeurism in Rear Window.
Sure.
Voyeurism was a huge thing with Alfred Hitchcock, and that's a very sexual fetishization and stuff like that.
And
So
I think Brian De Palma carries that over quite
he
well.
carried
So
that
we-
Hitchcock torch into the modern era very much so.
Mhm.
I mean, Dress to Kill is very much Psycho-esque.
Yes.
And
I'm a
Sure.
Keith Gordon nerd, so
Mm.
that movie makes me incredibly happy. His character in that movie is so incredible, and so I just watch and go, yeah, Keith Gordon.
Yeah, and I heard that
Awesome.
they had that documentary on De Palma some years back ago. I still have not seen it. I think it was 2015. Just about, I guess, about his career.
Yes.
I need to check that out.
I think it was just called De Palma.
Yeah.
I didn't watch that because I wanted to watch all of his films that I hadn't watched yet because I was afraid that they would show clips in that documentary and it would spoil stuff for me.
It's true. See, spoilers. This is what I'm talking about.
Because that often happens a lot when it comes to movie documentaries, and specifically about movie studios or about decades in films. Like I love, Easy Riders, Raging Bulls. That's how I learned a lot about 1970s films, American films, and Decade Under the Influence. But like they showed clips that spoiled all of those movies. I mean, it didn't stop me from watching them, but I kind of knew what was coming in a lot of them.
How do you two feel about Blowout?
Oh, I'm with you. It's one of the movies that when I watched it, I was starting to get into my own filmmaking, and I was seeing that behind the scenes, as you said, seeing kind of a below the line type of job when it comes to filmmaking, and seeing that behind the scenes and seeing what he has to do. He has to go out and he has to record sounds, and then by accident he records this this murder or whatever. It's like wow, like or not murder, right? I'm remembering it wrong. It's somebody says something, right?
It's a car
It's a
crash
blowout.
type
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
There's a blowout of a tire.
Yeah.
Blowout
I'm
of a
remembering
tire.
the wrong movie, but
From an accident,
Yeah.
and then but why is there an accident, and et cetera.
Yeah,
et cetera.
And then you start pulling the threads and things start becoming unraveled.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a film that was very formative for me because I probably saw it 2010, 11, around that time. And I was just really getting into movies, around that time, and I was just like, this is something I had never seen up to that point. So it's incredibly good, and it holds up extremely well. John Travolta, for all whatever pop culture jokes people like to throw at him, he was a really good actor back in that era. I don't bring this up often enough. Saturday Night Fever, for all of its Bee Gees soundtrack, that is a dark movie.
Man. People go
Dark,
in expecting
gritty movie.
disco happiness, and Jesus, no, certainly not that movie. Like that will be a downer for
The
sure.
only clips they ever show from it is him dancing and him strutting down the street. They don't show anything else that movie's about, and it's so gritty and dark 70s cinema.
Well, I think the cool thing about Blowout as well is that, as we mentioned, like it has this kind of like spiritual sisterhood with Blow Up, and I feel like we live in a time period where most people are like, oh, just remake Blow Up.
yeah.
Like, oh, but you could do that, or you could take that and spin it in your own way, and then it makes it so much better.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I like about Stranger Things is like, it's kind of sort of a riff on a bunch of different, you could look at each chapter and be like, this is, the first one's Firestarter, and here we have the Exorcist or whatever you want, but I think but it isn't a remake of anything. It's taking enough ideas and making it your own to make it something new that I like.
Yeah, I guess you could make this as an example, but I kind of thought about that with Slacker, not Slacker, Richard Linklater's when he did Everybody Wants Some? What's the movie he did with the baseball, the team?
That's it.
Everybody Wants Some, and that was kind of supposed to be a spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused, where it's about, the one's about, teens in high school and what they're going through, and then this one's college kids, and it's kind of a spiritual, thing where he took ideas from what it means to grow up, coming of age, and now he's taking the coming of age story and moving it to, college, where there's still more growing to do. You're still trying to figure out who you are. So
yeah, and we're not to go off topic, but that's a relative, that's a very consistent theme about the exploration of existentialness of humanity is a very heavy theme in all of his work.
Yeah.
But the Before trilogy, which is one of my favorite things ever put on film, is all about that. But it's like the interpersonal connecting relationship between, two people on a romantic level, but also on a human level as well. But he's always exploring humanity and
the passage of time and
things like that.
Well, I like him because he's character first,
yeah,
and everything else is incidental. So it's just dialogue. And that, to me, I watched Slacker for the first time in film class in college, and there was a big class, like over 100 people, and I was the only person in class that liked it.
Wow.
That's it. And I had to defend it and be like, no, this is why it's brilliant. You're just going from conversation to conversation. This is fucking amazing. I loved it so much, because all I want in film is dialogue and character connection and conversation. Like, you give me two people in a room and I'm happy.
It's incredible. It's an incredible cross section of multitudes of society in one confined area. Like, it's just like that one like geographical location, and you run into so many different people. Like, there's the person with political conspiracy theories in a bookstore, and then there's just somebody trying to sell you something on the street, and then there's just kids hanging out at a restaurant or driving around. It's just like, it's kind of like life in general. Life is so varied, and there's just so many different things constantly going on around us, and he touches on so many different things. He's one of my favorites, just like all time. Criterion, if you listen to us, just release more of his work, I guess.
They've released a lot of it, but
when the Before trilogy came out, that was it for me. Like, that's like a top 5 all-time release for me, for any movie. But moving on from there, I guess, Steven, do you want to jump to Sound of Metal?
Yeah, sure.
Just because going from sound to sound, but a completely different context. For those of you who haven't seen Sound of Metal, it's a film starring Riz Ahmed, who's a great actor. Came out in 2019, and it's about a drummer in a heavy metal band who is losing his hearing, and he has to deal with that part of his life now kind of going away, and it's kind of part of his identity, and now he has to discover a new identity and having to deal with this world. But the film really highlights, the nuances of kind of the deaf community and stuff like that. Steven, I know you saw it when it came out. I know I did. It was streaming on Amazon. I think it still is, because it's an Amazon
film
movie.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's it's one of the movies that, when it come on to streaming, we're all like, so when is it going to get released? And then Criterion was like, we're going to release it. And then we're like, when? And then it's like, we don't really know. Sometime maybe next year or something. and so finally they're putting it out, and it's Riz Ahmed's an actor that just keeps bouncing around, and he keeps doing great performance after great performance. And I don't know when he's going to get his due. I don't know when somebody's going to really highlight him. And I don't know, but this is definitely maybe his best showcase, where he's not only physically is he having to go through the ringer, but he's emotionally having to deal with the fact that the thing he loves the most is getting slowly taken. It's basically getting taken away from him, and he's trying to find a way to hold on to it, but he knows he can't. And then he's got, of course, his fiance or girlfriend that he needs to be attentive to that and show that he's he's like basically dealing with the new reality that he's in, and he's got to prove that to her, but he's not really focused on that.
It's all about existential crisis of identity, and not only identity, but like you get, when you lose something that's so much a part of yourself, you become very insecure, and so that affects your personal relationships around you. Yeah. And he's having to deal with that, and his significant other in the movie is portrayed by Olivia Cooke, who is a great actress. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl is one of my favorite movies of the last decade, and she was in that film. And just a great actress in general. So it's a really great film. People talked about it a lot when it came out. I think it was critically acclaimed, all that kind of stuff. But it's nice that we're finally getting a physical release, because it got nothing up until now. Yeah. I'm excited for this one.
Cool. Anything else stand out to you here? I mean, obviously, Julia, any of this interest you, or have you seen any of these other ones?
Everything interests me. I read up on every single one, of course. I have only seen Blowout and This Bunch, which makes me feel very, very sad. But again, as Edgar Wright says, yes. Right now I have all of these things to look forward to, and now I can see all of these movies, and I'm excited to see every single one. And I think especially the World Cinema Project that Scorsese has, because it's have movies ranging from the 30s all the ways up to the 70s, and then that's I feel that that's an area of cinema I haven't explored as much as I would like to. I would really like to explore more international cinema and more classic international. I haven't watched a lot of older. We have movies from Angola and movies from Japan, and I think that that's definitely an interest that I have.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Sean Baker with his film in this slate here? He's done stuff like Florida Project. He did Tangerine.
No, and I he's an amazing filmmaker, and I'm really excited to see this one, because I think he does a cinema verite style, if you will, quite well, where it feels very real.
Yeah. I was gonna say I would describe him as almost being almost like a neo-realist type of modern day. If there was a movement of realism in America for today's filmmaking, he would be one of the main guys.
Yeah, I mean, Tangerine, I think is. Notoriously, because one, it's a really, really good film, but he shot that movie on iPhone 5s, right. Using
I'm so glad he made it, because he made this incredible film, and I think it's a movie that a lot of people in LA had in their minds to make. I know I did, because Donut Time, which isn't there anymore now, it's a Trejo's Donuts, was the meeting place for transsexual hookers, and sex workers, and they would be out there all the time. So every time you drove by it, it's this kind of curious of what is that life? What is happening in this little, it's this little corner that there's this entire universe going on that I don't know anything about. So I think to be able to show that, and not in an exploitive way, right? The movie's very thoughtful and really taking this whole world very seriously, as they should, because this is somebody's life. Right. And I don't ever judge anyone, but it's just something of, what is that life like?
Yeah, it's a very his films are very honest about just life in general. Like Florida Project is similar in the sense that to Tangerine, where it's highlighting an area of society that probably a lot of people don't know about. This kind of people who don't really have a lot of stability in their lives, living out of a motel.
And it's right next door to Disney World.
Living right next door to the happiest place on earth is a motel where people who aren't having the happiest lives.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's the same with Tangerine, because that that donut shop is blocks away from Hollywood Boulevard, right, where you have the Chinese theater, and there's all these movie premieres. And I think that's something that's when I say I live in Hollywood, people get an idea of this very swanky, fancy lifestyle, which it can be sometimes, but most of the time not very glamorous at all. And if you walk down Hollywood Boulevard, it just looks like a street. It's nothing. It's this whole kind of vision of what you think the city is like versus what it's actually like.
Yeah, obviously you know it way better than we do, but there is this sense of glamour and glitz and all this kind of stuff when it comes to Los Angeles and Hollywood and all that stuff, where I can't tell you how many people who I've heard who actually live there, like yourself, saying, no, it's very much not that. It's not what you see on TV. It's very much the opposite of that. There's poverty, there's homelessness,
Sure.
there's crime, there's things that exist in every other place seemingly in the
And
country.
yet you can have experiences like this one, which is one of my very favorite experiences I've had here, where I was eating in an Arby's. Sean Penn also eating in that Arby's. He didn't take his Arby's to go. He
that's a
sat
little
and ate
different.
it in the Arby's, and that made me like him so much more. Where I'm like, yeah, man, just eat your
Just do
Arby's.
it.
I wasn't there for it. I wish I was there for it, but apparently we were talking before the show. I live in North Carolina. Kid Rock was coming through, and he stopped at a local Waffle House and just was eating. He just ate Waffle House in the Waffle House. That's what he does. I mean,
They got to eat just like everybody
Yeah,
else,
yep.
Yeah,
But
I mean-
I would picture Sean Penn as the kind of guy who would take or have a lackey come and bring him back Arby's, right? He's not the guy who's just going to sit and get it himself. So that gave me, it goes like, okay, he's kind of a down to earth kind of guy. He's not like holed up in his mansion. He's here with all of us.
Yeah, and I mean, the one thing that I've learned a lot about over the last decade or so, really getting into movies and the culture of movies and all Hollywood and all this kind of stuff, is for the most part, this may blow people's minds. Actors, actresses, directors, producers are normal people for the most part. Like, they have to go to grocery stores, they have to eat.
Yeah.
Like we just said, they have to
eat?
do
What?
normal things.
Hate to break it
like,
to you.
like they're relatively normal people. They just happen to be in a place in society that people lift them up on a pedestal and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, most of the people we're watching on these screens are regular normal people trying to do a job, to work, to get by.
Yeah.
Working actors and actresses.
Sure.
And working
And
directors and
I
whatnot.
feel the most fascinating thing that I've learned getting to meet all of the, I was so lucky to meet so many amazing people, is it doesn't matter what level you're at, you always have self-doubt. It's always there.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what, and it's just like, oh, is that okay? I don't know if they're going to like it, like that kind of feeling. And you feel like people get to a point where they're famous enough that you just, you magically have this confidence. So I would just like to give you all confidence to know that that never happens. You're always never feel like you're, and I don't think that's a positive thing to say, but I think it's a fascinating, interesting, humanizing thing to say, that like they're not up there being these fabulous selves that are beyond what humans are. They have the exact same amount of doubt any human has.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that if you're somebody that's a creative person anyway, you're always wanting to grow, and you can't grow if you're just believe that what you're doing is always great. So you need to. You have to look at yourself all the time, and you have to ask other people, hey, what do you think? Like, you can't just have yes people around you all the time and just believe that everything you do is gold, or you're never going to grow. You're just going to be the same
kind of stuff.
Crappy actor or actress. Is how it is.
Yeah, I mean, you're always, I think, a lot of people, or at least my personal philosophy, is you're always trying to grow and get better and get more, get better as a person, better in life in general. But there are a lot of people who like to stay stuck in their lane and like to kind of just keep consistently going at just a normal level, and that's their prerogative. But who hasn't really stayed kind of on that level is Sean Baker, because since Takeout, he's done several other films and has become.
And we do need to mention, this is a co-directed movie.
Yeah, I was just going to that was my next thing, is that this is co-directed by Shin Su, who also is part of the commentary and part of the new interview that's on this disc here. I unfortunately did not get a chance to watch this movie because it is really tough to find.
Yeah.
By really tough, I mean kind of impossible to find. And I guess that's kind of the the positivity of this getting an actual Blu-ray release, is people are probably going to discover it for the first time. And this feels like very much like we were just saying, in the Sean Baker realm of kind of displaying humanity. This is about an undocumented Chinese immigrant struggling to get by in a post 9/11 world, and it just kind of looks like it's coming up with a lot of life challenges in terms of owing people money and trying to figure out where to get that from and all this kind of stuff. And it looks very much in my wheelhouse of what I like to see, kind of an existential journey. So this is one that's definitely on my radar.
Definitely.
But you know what's else that's also good, Steven, is this movie called Exotica.
I really wanted to watch this and didn't get a chance. Yeah.
I got to see this. This is currently streaming on the Criterion Channel streaming service, and this is a really good film. It's came out in 1994, I
Yep,
believe.
94.
I didn't know anything about this movie at all going into it, other than its title, which suggests that it's some type of erotic thriller or something like that. Sex is very much part of this movie, but it's not what you're thinking. It's a much more contemplatively, much more deeply themed film. The film stars Bruce Greenwood. Elias Koteas is in the film as well. I didn't realize Elias Koteas was in it, and he still has his long hair from when he was playing Casey Jones in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that came out in 1990. So I was like,
Oh, shit, Casey
when
Jones.
did this one come out? Yeah, when did this
He's
come
amazing.
out? And
He needs more love. Can we get more
he
Elias
does. He's a
Koteas
great
love?
actor.
He always, like, even if his part's small, just like I think about something kind of wonderful where like he doesn't have a big part, but he's like he like kind of saves the day at the end, is like the cool guy.
He has a small part in Zodiac where he's like a detective from another town, like, and just him showing up, I was like, God, I believe him. He is he's like a guy. You can tell he goes day to day, and he's like living with all this crap he's seeing, all these dead people he sees all the time going on. I believe him. He is great.
You always sell what he's buying,
Yeah.
or you always buy what he's selling.
Yeah.
That's where we are. He always feels like he gives 100%.
Definitely.
So I'm sure he does in Exotica as well. I'm excited to see it because Adam Egan is a really fun filmmaker.
Yeah, and the film is very fascinating because it's about these three characters who are all dealing with certain type of things going on in their lives, but they're all like relatively mentally broken people who are kind of like, intermingling in each other's lives, and there's connections between them. And I don't want to, kind of give any of that away. But the main person is played by Bruce Greenwood, and he's kind of the first person we get to see, and he's kind of the connecting tissue with all of these characters. And the IMDb synopsis doesn't really spoil anything. A man plagued by neuroses frequents the club Exotica in an attempt to find solace, but even there, his past is never far away. So you get the connection of, there's a past thing that connects, a couple of these characters together. And it's a really good film. It's a subtle film. It's not bold in any way. It's not a thriller or anything flashy like that. You're just seeing these characters dealing with stuff that's underneath the surface, and you're not quite sure what it is, but they all seem very, very broken people, and I found it to be a really, really good film. And it's all like located around this club Exotica, this gentleman's club, and so that's kind of where the sexiness
right?
is in it.
It's in Canada, right?
Yes, it's a Canadian film. Interesting. I was wondering that early on in the movie because it's in a gentleman's club, so money's being exchanged, and I'm like, those aren't dollar bills. This must be someplace else, and it's Canada.
I've always had a question about this. In Canada and England, if you have coins for your small bills, right? You have pound coins, you have 2 pound coins. Do you throw pound coins on stage at strip clubs? Is that what happens?
I have no idea, but I can tell you in this movie they were using paper money, so.
Okay, because I don't know. I mean, in England, you don't have a pound bill, right? There's only a coin.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Right.
I'm not as well versed in Canadian.
They must be paying their strippers or their exotic dancers a lot more than
Well, yeah, I guess they must. Maybe they go up to them. I'm assuming things are very digitally done
or maybe
now
it's
anyways.
a voucher. Maybe it's a voucher. Maybe it's like they pay the coin in when they come in the door, and then it's an exchange. Like maybe.
Okay. See, this is
like
why
that?
you invited me on, because I'm asking the hard hitting questions.
You're asking the tough question because I have no idea.
Because if they're just throwing coins at girls, that's messed up. Just like ding, ding.
But what else do you do? I don't know. They're the best. I'm going to take this in a direction you don't want me to take it in. Here we are.
Yes.
The 2 best strip club names I've ever heard in my life. There's one in Los Angeles called Jumbo's Clown Room. Amazing.
Yes.
There's one in Edinburgh, Scotland. This one's even better. It's called Burke and Hare. So if you don't know,
man.
Burke and Hare are Scottish murderers.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, you named your strip club that. That's the least sexy name I could think of ever in my life.
Let me tell you this.
It's like calling your strip club like Charles Manson. Like, you just not sexy.
What's funny is there's a I used to be in a band in my 20s, early 20s, and we went and played a show down in Myrtle Beach area, and they have a biker bar that sounds like a strip bar, which is called Suck Bang Blow. very in your
Wow.
face.
Not subtle.
Not subtle,
Not
but
subtle.
it's not a
But the thing is, it's not a
it's
strip
not a
club,
gentleman's club. It's just a normal biker bar, and it's called Suck Bang Blow. So
I don't
it's
know.
weird.
Hey, if they ever wanted to convert it, they don't have to change the names. They really don't.
guess so.
I guess not. I mean, it just
That
yeah,
stuff's
it's very
probably still
interesting.
going
Also-
on there. So maybe that's
also,
why they're yeah.
I didn't. I didn't realize this because my naivete perhaps, but Alanis Cortez's character, he plays the MC at this Exotica club, so he's like introducing the women, but he's also like, oftentimes he'll be going on monologues over the MC, microphone and stuff, and I'm wondering, does that normally happen in these types of clubs where like he'll start talking like very slowly about like things, and it's like I don't think that's not really a mood setter.
No,
So-
I think that's a film world thing. I like that
Yeah.
that's a film world thing. I would like it if I went to a strip club and that happened, because I feel like it would feel very David Lynch, where if like someone was like telling
Yeah.
me a monologue about their existential crisis while there's a lady stripping in front of me, I would be pretty into that. But I feel like most people would not.
Yeah. Usually, I feel like perhaps I guess all patrons are different, but the patrons going to those clubs don't want to like
It's
be
escapism.
pointed out.
escapism,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? They don't want to be pointed out or be like, identified in any way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want to
'cause
think about
different
your
people
other
go for different
problems.
reasons.
Yeah, while you're
people
doing
are
this.
usually going there to escape their problems.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really good film. I really liked it a lot, and I don't think I had seen any other films by this director before, so it was very much an introduction for me, and it got me interested to see their other work and to see kind of their style and whatnot.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next slate. How about Indicator?
Yeah, I think we were pretty much we're pretty much good here. Yeah.
Yeah, the World
Yeah,
Cinema,
let's
the
talk
World,
about-
as you said, the World Cinema Project stuff. There's a couple that I could find, but they're pretty
Right.
hard. They're pretty rough to watch. So
Well, the quality is always an issue with them. What is interesting I find about this box set is it is both a Blu-ray and DVD combo.
Oh, okay.
Which we're not seeing from Criterion too much these days, other than their new UHD 4K sets that are coming out. Usually have the
Blu-ray
Blu-ray
with it, yeah.
combo going with it. Usually not the DVD stuff. But these sets have been coming out for years now. I know a lot of people collect them. I know, Steven, you have Volume 1.
yeah.
I unfortunately don't have any of these sets, but I kind of want to get into them. And Lister Beau by Henry Georges Clouzot is a great film. I haven't seen it in years, so I can't really comment on it too much, but it is a fantastic film by a great director. But yes, we can move on, Steven. Where do you want to go next?
Indicator. Let's do the
Okay.
couple releases we got from Indicator here.
So, Indicator is back in the game, and this time we have both a UK only title and a US only title. But the UK only title is the one people are buzzing about, and this is Universal Noir box set number 1. So we're going from Columbia Pictures' back catalog of noir titles now to Universal. Seemingly, things don't really change when it comes to Hollywood studios. If one company is making money off of something, another company is going to want to make their own money off of that same exact thing. We're seeing it now when it comes to blockbusters and superheroes and all that kind of stuff. But they did it back with horror back in the 30s and 40s. They're doing it, and they did it with film noir. So we've got a box set of 6 films. It's The Web, Larceny, Kiss the Blood Off My Hands, great title.
Yeah. That's like a
Abandoned.
giallo title. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Abandoned, Deported, and Naked Alibi, which is another kind of cool title.
And we talked
and-
with the owners, the co-owners, operators over there, John and Sam, and we plan to get them back to talk more about some more stuff later in the year. But they did tell us that more noir was coming. So and this was
Yeah.
before Humphrey Bogart's set was announced. So that came, and then now this one came, and it's like
So it's like
They didn't lie
it's
to
like
us.
double noir time now. A few of these films have been released over here already by various studios. Seemingly Kino kind of put these out a little bit already. I know Deported already came out. I know The Web already came out. But this box set here is where you can get kind of a lot of these films all in one place. And it's having to get to watch all of these movies It's an interesting collection because it starts off really great and then kind of depletes in quality as time goes on, but it's still worthwhile set to get. Of course, this set's coming just kind of packed with extra features, audio commentaries through the roof, archival interviews. There's also a 120-page book, but it is written by people that you are probably familiar with, or we are familiar with. Sabina Stent, who was a guest on our podcast a little while ago, she's writing for one of the films. I think she's writing for, not sure which one. Maybe it's The Web. Probably should have looked that up. But Joe Blake, who is a co-host on the Criterion Cast with Aaron West, is writing for Larceny, I believe. So that's really, really cool to see, people we know contributing special features to box sets we're probably going to get.
Yep.
Steven, how excited are you for this set?
I already pre-ordered this thing.
Oh, you already pre-ordered it?
Just like she was talking about her color-coordinated VHSs, I have a indicator box set on the top shelves over there that are complete, so I can't not get this just out of...
So I haven't asked, how do you arrange? Are you by distributor, or are you by alphabetical?
It is
genre?
At this moment right now it's kind of chaos, but it is mostly by distributor. Like depending, like I have like all my Criterions on a shelf, but you see right here with the Godzilla set right here has got all my Criterions on it, and then over there in the back I have like mostly all my Arrows on one, and then
Arrow Video,
Arrow and Kino. But the thing is it's my space is limited, so now everything's just kind of together in the best way I could fit them on there as possible. And then there's a door in the back of this room that has a big closet that has even more movies, and then we're just a hodgepodge of there is no coordination. So I just have
so don't come at me with my color coordinated VHS.
No. That's actually cool.
Yeah, I have.
I wish I had that.
I have all my
type of
movies on an app on my phone
mindset.
that tells me whether I have something or not, and then that's all I go by. That's it. So.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, I have a movie app that I scan in every time I get a new movie. I scan it into my phone, and it tells and it catalogs it for me. And then if I am buying stuff, I'm like, do I already have this? Yes, no, and then there I go.
Okay, so I just want to make a correction. So Sabina she wrote the essay for Abandoned.
Okay.
Joseph M. Newman's Abandoned. For me, my collection's kind of odd. Because it's kind of like my
his
own
is ridiculous. You think yours is crazy? Listen to this.
Yeah, I have like separate sections of organization, if that makes sense. So over there, which you can kind of see, people at home can't see, that's the I have everything in alphabetical order by director's last name.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Hard, not by title?
Starting from Abrams all the way down to I think Zwick. I think that would be the last one.
Impressive.
But then he has a separate Oscars area for Oscar movies.
But then but that whole section starts off with Best Picture Oscar winners from like beginning all the way up till now.
Chronological?
Chronological.
Okay.
Not all of them. I have a few missing, and then a few I have to add in at the end because of the last several years. As people know, shelf space is always an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's always an issue. So that's that section over there, which only we can see. And then over here is another wall of stuff where I have box sets up top.
Okay.
And usually that's in alphabetical order by like starting with like Criterion and then moving along down to like Shout Factory. It needs to be
He's the
organized,
only one that could find anything.
I'm the only one that can find
put it that
anything.
way.
And then
Okay.
this stuff here, these movies here are separated by genre. So starting with like
Okay.
action, sci-fi, fantasy is
So
up
he
top
chose
over there.
every sorting style because he likes them all.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then but thing is like within the genres, those are in alphabetical order.
Right.
So
I've never heard of director before. I'm
Yeah.
impressed by that one.
Yeah,
Well
the
done.
director one I kind of like the most because like, hey, I always know like kind of who directs a movie. Like, let's say it's Peter Jackson.
Well,
I go to the Peter Jackson.
it also
is,
keeps you on your
you know?
toes. It keeps you helps with your memory of things. You're like, he did this movie, so like you go there and you're like, I'm right, and then
Yeah,
you know.
but also within the director little section, I have them in chronological order, like earliest film to most recent film as well.
course. Any other way would be
It'd be
madness.
weird.
Yeah, any other way
It would be me.
crazy.
It would be my stuff.
Yeah.
It would be my collection.
But,
It
But,
reminds
like,
me of
yeah.
in High Fidelity, Rob Gordon, who he was rearranging his albums chronologically, personally to his life, and like
Yes.
that was the system. He's like, nobody else will be able to understand, but I'll understand.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah, there's that shot where he does that in the movie where he's just sitting on the floor and he's got
Yep.
all of his albums in stacks all around him. That's literally my life, but with movies, because next to me I've got like stacks of movies and all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of similar to that. I'm not quite as, I guess, neurotic as he was, but similar when it comes to movies. But within the genres, I've got like the genre separated, like actions up top, then comedy, then drama, then horrors at horror used to be at the bottom, and then I kind of switched it, so it's not quite
Got moved
alphabetical
up.
And I-
order.
Moved up to the top shelf. Nice.
I know. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, I wanted to ask a favor of the listeners. I wanted to know if you listen to this, if you'll let us know how you organize your collection,
Ah, yes.
because it's so personal, it's so fascinating.
It is.
Anthropological collector study.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, please. Anybody that wants to, tell us what they got going on. If it's too personal, you don't have to tell us. No.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like to do the label stuff, like you were saying, Steve. I know a lot of people like to separate the DVDs and the Blu-rays. But for me, I kind of keep them together because I like that whole, like I said, the alphabetical order thing. So it's like if I have a DVD of Half Baked next to something else that's a Blu-ray, I don't really have a problem with that. Even though aesthetically, it doesn't look flush. When it
Yeah,
comes to
that's the
top.
problem with it. That's why I do color
people don't like
coordination,
that.
because it looks the most aesthetically pleasing. It's beautiful to look at as well as functional.
Yeah, I kind of do that with my, like, the one that's directly behind me is like basically all box sets, and I find that to be aesthetically beautiful, that all these big bricks are all on one shelf. But also I look at the chaos that I have going on as a way for me to just look at my collection, looking for the one movie I'm trying to watch, and I'm just like, this just gives me a reason to look through all this again.
I'll say this though, Stephen. I do have that, like when my box set's up top, and and they are very aesthetically pleasing. Like having all of the Hammer box sets next to each other,
Yeah.
so they all say Hammer, and they're all like different colors. That's
1,
really
2,
cool. All
3.
the Columbia
Yeah, yeah,
Noirs. They're all like 1, 2, 3. Like
Welcome
you
to the
said.
OCD podcast.
Yeah, basically, essentially.
What kind of OCD are
It
you?
looks nice. Even the Criterions look nice, because I do like when they have the spine numbers, and you
Yeah.
can like put all the spine
Or like
numbers
like
together.
Kino has got a very kind of uniformic, like just black with white letters, and it like put them all together, and it looks just so kind of like classic looking,
Yeah, but they change it sometimes. I'm just looking at.
I mean, the ultimate is to be able to be invited to the Criterion closet, though, right?
Oh,
I thought about
It's
turning
like
this.
every filmmaker's
Yeah,
dream.
I thought about turning that closet into a Criterion closet, my own, because it is that big. It's big enough to like, I'd have to take down the shelving that's in there, but then just line the walls with shelving. And I was like, I could do this.
Yeah, I know. I've seen people do that. Turn like their closet into a Criterion closet.
Yeah.
That's kind of a cool idea. But that's the ultimate
I also
dream.
wanted
Like,
to change that door into like a shelf to be like one of them like hidden doors where it's like a shelf, but then you have pull the book.
cool.
I wanted to do that as well. it's maybe I'm still want to
That's
do
a
it.
very interesting idea. But my love for Criterion actually started out watching those Criterion Collection videos, like when they made them like late 2000s, early 2010s, and like the earliest ones was like Robert Downey Sr. and like Bill Hader and stuff like that. And it's just like they're just talking about these movies that I never heard of before. And it was just incredible. Now everybody seems to like know about that and stuff like that. And the closet just gotten massively bigger over the years, like massively bigger. But
The film noir set.
yeah, it's the film noir
Yeah,
set.
yeah.
Well, back to film noir. Like I said, these are all good films. For me, Deported maybe the weakest one, because it was just the one I was just kind of bored with the most. And ironically, it was directed by Robert Siodmak, who is probably one of the better directors in the set. But this was a later film from him. I guess maybe that's the reason why. Maybe he had to run a little bit out of steam along the way. But You'll see a lot of people in these movies that you're probably going to recognize. The one that was really the highlight for me that I was not slightly disappointed with, but I thought it would be a better film, is Kiss the Blood
I
Off
was
My
going to say, I
Hands.
did watch this one, though.
That's an amazing title,
is.
and it stars Burt Lancaster and Joan Fontaine,
Yeah.
which are two actors that I admire very much so. Two I'm a big fan of. And
It starts off
it's-
really great. It starts off like...
It
yeah.
does. It does. And it loses a little bit of steam kind of like towards the end of the movies, and kind of towards the second half. Basically, the premise of this film is that Burt Lancaster's character kills somebody in a bar fight, and he runs away, and he ends up running into Joan Fontaine's character's apartment to hide out. And he ends up kind of hiding out there, and they end up kind of striking up this relationship. But he's got a lot of anger issues, Stephen, you would say,
Yeah.
and so that gets him in a lot of trouble. As you go along
isn't
with
the
film.
character ex-military also? And so he's like...
Yes, there's a whole
Yeah.
kind of idea. This is post World War II. He's probably somebody who was in active duty during World War II, and essentially has PTSD because of it. But of course, in 1948,
They don't... Yeah.
people didn't call it PTSD. People called it, I don't know what, maybe they called it shell shocked or something like that. And we're only actually really now dealing with PTSD as an actual thing all these years later, taking it relatively more seriously now than ever before. But it's been around seemingly forever. Just people didn't know how to deal with it. And seemingly in this movie, people don't know how to deal with it because he's kind of just erratic when it comes to his mental state. He can be both charming, but also can
Switch.
beat people up.
Yeah. But
And he
Burt
ends up-
Lancaster's so good at doing that. Like, he's so
Yes.
good at going from being charming to being kind of like terrifying. He gets really serious really fast. And
And also when
yeah.
when it comes to someone who is like that and dealing with problems with the law and stuff, it's easy for him to fall back into old bad past ways, and that's what gets him in a lot of trouble in the film. But he and Joan Fontaine, I think, have a really good chemistry together. And I always loved Joan Fontaine. She was an actress that I loved very
she's,
early on from her work in.
what's the Hitchcock film? She's in
She's in Suspicion.
Suspicion. What's the one I'm thinking of?
She's in Rebecca.
That's it. Yeah.
That was one of my early ones that I really loved. I love the movie Rebecca. Alfred Hitchcock's, I think, first Hollywood film.
Yes,
1940, I believe. Nominated for, I think it won
One Best Picture. Yeah.
Which he didn't get the credit for because back then I guess directors weren't also producers on movies, and so he technically never won an Oscar in competition, which is baffling to me.
Yeah. But Julia, are you a fan of film noir?
I am,
Yeah.
yes, and I embarrassingly have not seen any of these, but I would watch every single one because it's such a fun genre. It's just because it's such a specific. It's interesting to have such a specific visual film style for a specific short amount of time, right? Because we can talk about. I mean, I guess like superheroes have kind of a aesthetic film style, frenetic, explosive craziness, but to think about it, you have this genre that's popular, but also like we film it in this way.
Yeah.
And where, the film noir specifically, right, where it's about light and shadow and how we're playing with that. And it's really about the cinematography. It's about how you're lighting it. And that's something that I think people do, like when I first started, when you watch movies when you're a kid, you just watch the story, right? And then you go to film school and you're like, oh, okay. There's somebody back there who had to light this, who had to understand how this is going to make this person look. And here's this camera person putting it at this angle because of this. And when you really break down, I think this was watching a film noir was the first time, it's very stark that you can really appreciate, okay, this is not real life. They're not trying to make it look like real life, or like it's this kind of side universe we live in where everybody's heightened in this way.
Yeah. It's
very much so.
As Eddie Muller said when we talked to him, he's like, he looks at it more of as a movement. This was a movement of that time.
Sure.
That really
like French New Wave or like, that kind of thing. Right.
Yeah. It was all influenced by the world that was going on around people, and it made people look at the world in a certain way. And that's how they saw it. They saw it, and there was, of course, most film noirs typically are around criminal activity, but but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just more about personal relationships that are gone bad, and personal things that people are going through, like something like what's the one Billy Wilder film, The Lost Weekend, is about alcoholism. It's about so it's a genre, yet it's not a genre. It's somehow over time made itself into a genre, but really it's about style. It's a style that brings the substance with it. Yeah, it's great.
Right. And it's something that's so unique and specific for its time, but then it's also expanded throughout the decades and kind of, we get neo-noir, we get, all kinds of stuff now. I mean, like I think I said it last week, Stephen, there's this big push when it comes to reintroducing us now to the 90s neo-noir era. We just mentioned kind of Brian De Palma, where he very much, his work was neo-noir-ish.
Sure.
So it's like...
Something like Dark City, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Dark City, but I was even what did we talk about last week? Wild Things.
Wild Things, yeah.
Yeah.
It's got a sleazy neo-noir feel to it,
That sleazy 90s neo-noir stuff.
That 90s sleaze is such a specific type of sleaze
thing.
That box set I was showing that nobody else saw, that whole box set's got all that in there. Sleaziness.
You're talking about the After Dark.
Yeah, the After Dark from Imprint.
It's right behind you. I can see.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
But it's, that 90s sleaze. We all lived through it, and we really didn't realize what it was at the time. Just like, and now we're looking back at it, and we're like, oh, that's actually very unique and specific. Like things like Basic Instinct and stuff like that. Things that have been like put into people's minds in a certain context, I think are being reevaluated now and being relooked at in much different ways. Like we just talked about Wild Things, where it's actually pretty interesting neo-noir from the 90s outside of the sexual aspect of it, like we talked about recently. And
I don't think you can separate noir from the sexual aspect, right? That's part of what noir is. You have to have the sexy lady who's going to be your demise.
The femme fatale.
And, back in the day, of course, with the code and all that stuff like that, you didn't get to see the sex. But now you can.
You have to do different things.
It's just taking it a step further. In the 90s, they did
I think of like Double Indemnity.
Yeah.
The introduction of Barbara Stanwyck's character in Double Indemnity is so wroth with sexual vibes to it, sexual tension to it, where in modern day it would be so much more obvious of what the intention of the scene is, but back then you couldn't show it, so you just had to convey it in a different way, a certain look, a certain style, the way somebody would lean towards someone. It's very nuanced. It's just kind of fascinating. But this box set kind of is more political when it comes to the aspect of noir. Like I'm thinking of Larceny is kind of commenting on, yet again, post World War II. John Payne is playing this character who is a con man, and he's part of like this con man system, where in this film he is trying to con this war widow into giving him money that she like inherited from her husband dying in the war. And that's a really dark thing to think about. And it's incredibly unsettling, taking advantage of someone who is vulnerable for monetary gain is something that was wrong back in 1948 and is wrong now in 2022. So there's like contemporary connections there to it. Stephen, which one of these films did you actually get to see?
Like I said, I saw Kiss the Blood Off the Hands, and then I did watch The Web as well, which I think would be considered maybe the best of these.
I think I really like The Web a lot.
Great cast too. Great Vincent Price, of course. Just having Vincent Price.
Yeah, anytime Vincent Price shows up, I'm there.
Yeah.
Like I just got more Vincent Price for my birthday that I was just mentioning. So I got more Vincent Price in my collection now than ever before, which is always a great thing.
But the scenario is just it's an interesting scenario of somebody that thinks gets hired to protect somebody, and then in the middle of protecting them, they kill the person they think that they are supposed to be protecting that person from, but then they think maybe this was a mistake, like it was they're actually being duped into like getting rid of the other person, and it's like a cool like series of combination of events. It's
the classic like Fall Guy scenario where you're being duped into something that you weren't expecting, or you're being kind of a patsy.
Yeah.
You're being set up to take the fall for something that someone else wanted to happen but didn't want to do on their own. And when it comes to noir, that's typically murder.
Yeah.
So, and it's a great interplay with kind of unfolding all of those things and trying to prove certain things. Vincent Price playing a bad guy is something you don't. You saw that a lot with his work with
when he got into horror Hammer stuff,
when he got into when he got into horror with specifically with
Theater of Blood is amazing.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff where he was,
Are you talking about like the Edgar Allan Poe movies?
His work with Corman.
Yeah, well, yeah,
like all that
he
stuff.
did all. That was the
played,
Corman stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the Corman stuff, where he played bad guys all the time. But he was always, I don't know, I was kind of rooting for him most of the time in those movies. I don't know why. Probably shouldn't have been. Like,
have you seen Theater of Blood, Julia?
Yeah,
yeah, God, I love that.
And you should always root for Vincent Price.
Yeah, in that movie, I'm rooting for him the whole
even
time.
Even in that film, I was just like, yeah, get your revenge against these people. Screw them.
In a very Shakespearean way.
Yeah, even in Abominable Dr. Fives, where he's trying to get revenge once again, it seems to be a thing. It's like, yeah, you get your revenge on these people. I always root for Vincent Price.
Let me get your opinion on this, Julia. Every time we talk about Vincent Price, I have to bring this up. I want a Vincent Price biopic, and I want Nicolas Cage to play him. What do you think? No. Come on. Yes, no.
Maybe. No, that wasn't a noise of no. Okay. That was a noise of me thinking.
Okay.
No, I'm not against the idea because, Vincent Price is very theatrical, as is Nicolas Cage. Yeah. I'm just thinking physically, they don't really resemble each other. That was my hesitation.
You're right there. You're definitely right there. Prosthetics. He's gonna need some prosthetics.
I'm just trying to picture Nicolas Cage with the
mustache and
the pencil thin, the thin mustache and stuff like that. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Well, I won't bring it up anymore. I bring it up way too much. I bring it up way too much, and I need to calm down. I just need to start a Nicolas Cage podcast. That's what I need to do.
I know.
There's enough of them out there too.
I bet there is by this point. But moving on from there, moving back into the noir stuff. Abandoned is very good. Abandoned is actually is interesting because it's about crime, but it's about crime of people selling babies, which is something that's
super dark,
fascinating to me. Like there's this organization where a woman, if you have an unplanned pregnancy, if you get different times, obviously, if you're not married, unwed, all that kind of stuff. I guess there was this organization, in the movie where they'll take care of you throughout the pregnancy, and then you sign over the rights to them. But then this organization then sells that baby to people who want to adopt but don't want to go through all of the paperwork and the steps to do it officially. They'll do it through this kind of shady organization. But apparently, if you try to cross this shady organization, they will have you murdered. Once again, murder. And what happens is this woman comes to town, and she's trying to find her sister who got caught up in this, and she ended up, not making it through. So they're trying to uncover this secret, illegal adoption organization and stuff. It's a very interesting film. It's also starring a few people that I really liked. At one point, Raymond Burr plays a heavy in the movie. And I thought he was really, and I was like, is that Raymond Burr? And it is. So yeah, that's one that's here. But yeah, Naked Alibi stars Sterling Hayden, who I always really like. So this is a good group of films. But moving on from there, Stephen, I feel like we've been stuck in the dark alleys for too long.
Well, you got one more because you got the U.S. only release.
Yes, that's where I want to go to now. Orders to Kill is the U.S. only release from Indicator/Powerhouse. This can only be found here at Diabolic, at Amazon, etc., etc. This is not listed on their website, so you won't find it there at all. And this is a movie that I thought was really, really good. Paul Massey plays this ex-fighter pilot during World War II, who then switches to the espionage wing of the Allied forces, if you will, and his job is to go in undercover, essentially, to Paris during occupied times, and he's going to murder this man who has apparently been giving like radio secrets to the Nazis or something like that. But this is his like first mission ever. He's kind of just learning things, if you will. And he's very much, naive about situations and whatnot. But he goes there to infiltrate, and he ends up meeting this person, ends up meeting who he is, and kind of learning more about him and stuff. And he has crisis of consciousness, stuff like that. But the movie gets very serious about things like that. Very serious about like wartime PTSD, like I've been talking about. Apparently, it's based on a real true story. I thought it was really, really good. There's an actress in this film who has a scene that is just incredibly powerfully stunning, and I was like, I don't know who this actress is, but this is an incredible scene. And the actress is what's her name? Irene Worth, and I don't know any of her films at all. I just thought, no, she had a great monologue in this movie that was powerful and kind of just berating this guy about his mission. And the context for pointing out,
sometimes performances of unknown actors like that get lost. So good for giving a shout out.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I was just blown away by her, and I know she's been in other films like Death Trap and Nicholas and Alexandra, stuff like that. It's the films I know about but I haven't seen. And I don't know if she's a prominent actress in those films at all. All I know is that she was great in this movie and just really blown away by her. So that's Orders to Kill. And this is a really good film, very underrated. The cover of this Blu-ray is incredible.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I was
blood
like,
on his hands.
Oh, man. It's got me.
And even the actor Paul Massey, I thought was really, really, really good in the film as well. But moving on from there, Steven, let's get to the last slate of everything, and this is going to be the stuff from Imprint. Imprint's releasing another box set.
Technically, I don't think this was officially announced for any month yet.
No. This is like potential future release sometime in the future.
Yeah, so this could be end of the year, maybe a big end of the year box set, maybe, or something like that. But it's a big one, and some people had already guessed it because I guess I missed the rumors, but apparently Walter Hill box set was something that people already kind of was aware of possibly coming.
A lot of people guessed it in the Facebook forums and in the post that they kind of teased earlier this week. But it is a Walter Hill box set. Steven, what films are in this box set and how many are there?
Well, we got 6 films ranging from his 1970s work all the way up to 2006. So we got Hard Times from 1975, The Driver from 1978. We have The Long Riders from 1980, Extreme Prejudice from 1987, Johnny Handsome from 1989. That's a good year, Andrew. I just did something.
What a stab in the dark.
This is something Andrew does.
We have a thing.
Anytime the year he was born gets brought up, which is 87, he likes to say "good year." So I see. Yeah, so I say 89, and that was the year I was born. So
okay,
that's a little ribbing. Yeah. I guess.
But and then lastly, we have Broken Trail, which is like a mini series, actually, and very mini. It's only like a couple episodes, but it's from 2006. So yeah, I was a little, when somebody brought up that this was probably Walter Hill, I was like, oh man, am I gonna get a redo of what's the movie from the 90s with Bruce Willis that he did? It's based on like a Kurosawa movie. I'm blanking on it.
I'm gonna look it up.
But
it's not. Let's see.
Oh, this is good podcasting.
Yeah, good podcasting.
Good
podcasting.
Blank.
You're talking about
The Last Man Standing. Last Man Standing.
No, Last Man Standing.
The one where he's in and it's a Western. I mean, he's just blowing people away. It's a cool movie. It's got Christopher Walken's in it. He's the bad guy. Love it.
Oh my god, it's a remake of Yojimbo.
That's it. I love that movie. Probably watched it too young as a kid, but I remember loving that movie, and it's probably because I loved Bruce Willis. I loved Die Hard, and I watched that, and I love that, and I thought that was going to be part of this box set, and it wasn't. And I was like, man, when are we going to get a good Blu-ray of Last Man Standing, and not the show that Tim Allen's in, because we got enough of that. But
yeah, I don't think people realize how many, like Walter Hill's filmography
is so crazy.
A lot of films people. people have
Amazing.
known of, like 48 hours. A lot of people know
Yeah.
48 hours, and then another
What,
48 hours.
so Julia, what you're a fan of Walter Hill?
I
Yeah.
am. I do. I very much like Walter Hill. The Warriors is probably
Oh yeah.
my favorite of his. I love that movie so
Just
much.
got a release from this same label.
Yeah.
Just a
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
It's a deluxe
Because
release with the director's cut and the theatrical cut. Yeah.
yes, amazing. There was one time when my family, we were in New York and we went to Coney Island, and I specifically wanted to go to Coney Island to like do my Warriors time. And we got off the train in Coney Island. It was so cold, and we immediately had to go to a gift shop to get sweatshirts. And I was like, I'm going to get a Warrior sweatshirt. So I went over and got it. And the guy at the counter, he was like, "You seen the Warriors?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "How many times you seen it?" It's like, "Ah, a good amount." And he's like, "Okay."
All right.
Like he wouldn't sell it to me otherwise. Like, yeah. I'm excited. I got to meet Walter and do Q&As with him at the New Beverly. And he was
Nice.
always really, really kind and really thoughtful, and always seemed quite surprised that everybody was so excited about his work.
Oh wow.
I got to see the Long Riders when we did a festival of his stuff. So I got to see the Long Riders there, and the Driver. So I mentioned that I would be bringing back Edgar Wright again, and I know I had talked about him a couple of times, but I wanted to talk about it here because, to me, and this is my own personal opinion about Edgar Wright, but I knew him well-ish for someone who was interviewing somebody, but we talked about movies a lot, and he had these movies. So he showed The Warriors was one of his series. He did Phantom of the Paradise as one of his series. And like, to me, each of his movies is kind of an homage to one of his favorite directors, right? So you have Shaun of the Dead, you have Romero. And then I feel like you have The Driver, which is just, you have Baby Driver, right? Which is just the driver, like it's based, and he says, how much The Driver influenced Baby Driver. And like, it's just his Walter Hill movie kind of. And I feel like Last Night in Soho is his Brian De Palma movie. And so because I know that he loves Brian De Palma, so when I was watching, I was like, aha, his Brian De Palma movie. I get it, and so it's like, I like that about him. And I don't mean to demean him by saying he doesn't have original ideas, because of course he does, but it's done it in his own style where you can see the influence, but it's still his own movie. And I love that about him.
Yeah, his movies. You talked about editing earlier, like his editing in his movies, I love too. God, they're so amazing. Like some of them are very creative, and some of them they're quick, but they're also clear. You can see everything, but they're especially like Scott Pilgrim. A lot of great editing in Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah, he cut his edits give his films energy.
Yeah.
Like he cuts on energy, and it just
and of course music plays a big part.
Along.
Music plays a big part.
Yeah. In Baby Driver specifically.
Yeah, and all of his films, and I like that he's able to jump genres so much. As I think that's a really cool thing that he does. So I think The Driver is great, and I think the thing I like about The Driver is how, yes, you have amazing car chases and everything, but other than that, like, it's quite understated. Like it doesn't, and I feel like there's this reality to Walter Hill's. There's lots of extreme violence, but I feel like it's not set in a fantasy world, really, even though it is, right? Like the Warriors, like you have like the Mine Baseball Gang. You're like, what world is this? So it is the real world, but it's also this kind of like slightly altered Walter Hill world.
Yeah, and of course that same movie, The Driver, influenced Nicholas Winding Refn on his movie,
of course,
Drive. So that's the amped up version. So. That's the over really overly stylized, very violent version of the Walter Hill movie. I mean, I really enjoy that movie too. I watched it last night for the first time, and I mean, you can tell Nicholas Winding Refn was just like, I really want to do this movie, but I'm going to jack it up to 11,
But how cool is it? Like we were talking about how two people see the same movie and then they do something, they see something different. And you have Edgar Wright, you have Nicholas Winding Refn, who both see The Driver and they're like, I'm going to do this. No, I'm going to do this. And they're the same. You can see the same influence, but it's just taken in two different people's directions.
Yeah. The spectrum is wide, and you can take one idea and then really, show different shades of that idea and make it a whole different experience. And that's what they did with The Driver. I mean, they saw that and it, Bruce Dern in the movie, I want to bring up, because I thought Bruce Dern in The Driver was amazing. He's so smarmy in the movie. Just every time he shows up, you're just like, God, you want to punch him in the face. But he's so good at it. He's so good at it. And I think a lot of more modern people, they have seen a lot of Bruce Dern's older films, and he's been great in a lot of his later films, like Nebraska was amazing in and stuff like that. But going back and seeing some of Bruce Dern's early films is great. I watched Smile, which has got a Fun City Editions, release. He's great in that. And I keep finding more Bruce Dern. I got to keep doing it. He's great. But any other Walter Hill that you're a fan of out of these that you've seen?
I mean, The Driver and Long Riders are the only ones
Okay.
I've seen. But again, I feel like the great thing about movies is there's always going to be ones that you haven't seen that you get to explore, right? And especially if you have a filmmaker, like I get excited. I say, okay, I haven't seen a lot of De Palma's later work, but I'm like, I have my whole life to watch all of that, and I can. Same with Walter Hill. Like I know I like his stuff, and so you just go, okay, I'm just going to explore where he goes.
You set up your own little film festival at home. You're just like, yeah, I do that all the time. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this combination together. If I can find the movies, of course, in my collection, I'm going to put this movie with this movie, and then, I'm going to make a day of it. And maybe with the baby, I can do that a little bit more often because I'll have to be holding the baby, let it sleep, and maybe I can watch a little bit more movies, more than usual, and do stuff like that. So I'll be excited about that. And of course, introducing her to stuff will be interesting. Where should I start?
Yeah. Do you have baby's first movie already picked out?
You know what? I haven't gotten that far. I haven't gotten that far yet.
Tough questions. I asked about strip club coins and baby.
That is
first movie.
They're almost the same question. There's same amount of toughness. But it's one of them things. Of course, I gotta think about my wife, what she thinks is appropriate. But of course, when they're if we're talking about babies. Like, what am I going to let them be around when they're a baby? I don't really care, to be honest. But when they're like old enough to know, like to really understand movies, I don't know. I got to think about that more. I don't know.
All right. It's a deep question. I don't expect you to have an answer on the spot.
I should have had an answer. I should have already been thinking about this. You're right.
No.
You failed us.
I failed us. No. It's okay. I'm over it. But Walter Hill, he's a filmmaker that's very much got his own style. And
yeah, he's a gritty... I would say gritty filmmaker, because when they were teasing us about the set, they were like, who do you think this gritty filmmaker is that we're going to release a box set of? And it's Walter Hill. I really like the aesthetics of the box set itself. Each movie's coming in their own case, own artwork. I know that both The Driver as well as Hard Times have both been released here in the U.S. Through Twilight Time a few years ago, I think 2013-ish area. But Hard Times is another film in this box set starring Charles Bronson, who is a bare knuckle boxer who's kind of going around and fighting in these like illegal fights, and his manager is portrayed by James Coburn. And talk about slimy in movies. James Coburn is pretty slimy in this movie. I guess you kind of have to be a bare knuckle brawler.
He does that so well. It's that grin. Yeah. You go, you're lying to me, sir.
And he'll just he'll riff off and just sequentially insult you. And it's just like brutal, it's so sly. And they're the opposite of characters in this movie. Charles Bronson's character is like silent, doesn't talk. He just fights and knocks people out. And then James Coburn just constantly talking and like promoting him. And they go around and have this very contentious relationship. James Coburn's character has a gambling problem and he owes money to the wrong type of people, and he can't pay his debts. It seems to always be a theme in a lot of movies dealing with sports in general.
If you had a debt payback film festival like programming series, that endless. Would endless.
Yeah, Uncut Gems just recently. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Or the other movie, didn't the other movie that the Safdie Brothers movie, the early one, have the same kind of themes of
Good Times?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What was the name of that movie? It just
Good Times?
Well, Good Times is great. I love that one too, but I'm thinking of an earlier Safdie Brothers
there was their first.
Was it Granddaddy Longleg or something like that? Or
I'm gonna look right now.
Or was it their writing partner's film
No, that one. That was a film.
That's called Frank and something. But
no, you're talking about. It was called Daddy Longlegs. Is the Safdie's first film from 2009. Yes.
Didn't you say it had similar vibe as some of their other stuff, where it was like a father that That was like,
Yeah, it was about a father who was kind of like a deadbeat dad, but he also had like money issues when it comes to owing people money and kind
Yeah.
of stuff like that. But what I really think of is the movie that just got released by Fun City Edition, Steven, the one with the late great
Born to Win.
Born to Win. That's a movie that's very similar
George
to
Siegel.
Uncut Gems, with George, the late, George Siegel, where he's owing money to people in that movie left and right, and he just can't dig himself out of that hole. That seems to be a theme in a lot of movies.
That's one of my things in real life that gets me sometimes is financial. Like, it can put me on edge a little bit sometimes. So it's like when I see that in a movie, that really gets me. I'm like, dude, you just pay that dude back, man. Just pay him back.
Yeah, that's a universal theme when it comes to life.
Yeah.
I think we're learning that now and today directly, is that money is the biggest form of stress in probably people's lives. Because it's the key to, without it, you can't eat, you can't live safely, you can't live a life. I mean, it's very, we've reached that point in our society where it owns us, essentially.
It's the controlling factor.
It's the grease that moves the wheels of life in society in general, especially, not to get too political, capitalistic society. Without money moving, everything stands still.
But
that's not a political podcast.
So it's a downer. Okay.
Yeah. Let's look on the bright side of life.
This is a great set. I can't wait. I'll probably get it one day because I can't help myself, and I do like Walter Hill.
Yeah, it's also a great. I got a feeling this set's going to sell extremely well. Their stuff lately has been selling out pretty consistently. So if people really want to jump on stuff,
limited to 1,500 copies. So.
Yeah, which is not a lot of copies in the grand scheme of things. So. I know you got to import it from Australia or wait until.
You should go to Orbit DVD.
Yeah, Orbit DVD.
Our sponsor. No,
our sponsor. They will be getting these in. I know they're getting a lot of stuff in. I know, as of this recording. So future people probably won't care. They'll probably be getting more copies of Warriors in relatively soon. I know that's a hot seller for obvious reasons, but that goes right along with this set too. There's a whole Walter Hill collection you can get in just 2 purchases.
But
Steven, that seems to be everything.
That's it for this week's announcement slate. Julia, thank you very much for joining us. You hung with us. We appreciate that.
Of course. I can give you my 2 cents, whether or not it means anything to anyone. But this is what podcasting is.
That's what it is. We there's something about something that's a little bit more structured. It can be quick and fast, and people can, have an easier time getting to what they want to listen to. But I like the conversations more. I'll listen to 3-hour-long podcasts all the time while I'm working, and you can always find tidbits in there that are always just make it all worthwhile. And I think that's what we got out of today. I think there was you gave us a lot of great stories, a lot of stuff about what you're doing that I think people are going to be very interested in. And unfortunately, I don't think everybody's going to get to see the movie you're making, but I'm hoping we will.
You can picture it in your mind.
What I'll do for you is if we get a chance to watch it, I'll just describe it to people. I'll be like, okay, this is how.
Okay, frame by frame. Here we go.
Okay, so the camera pans to the right, and then we get this. I'll do that whole thing for you. I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay, that's good. Well, I mean, as we say, Stephen King can see it, and who knows what will happen?
Yeah. Maybe he'll greenlight you to do a fuller length version. That would be amazing.
Yes, please, universe.
Go ahead.
Yes, please.
But Julia, where if anybody wants to reach out to you, where should they go?
I am on all of the places you want to find somebody on Julia C. Marchese. So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and TikTok and all that. And I do love to talk to people online. So talk to me and I will respond.
Awesome. Andrew, that's it for this episode. I was about to train. Usually we don't have every guest talk the whole show with us. We transition, and it's a transition to us talking Blu-rays, just me and Andrew. So there wouldn't be an outro for us. I see. But this week we are doing it.
Stephen and Andrew, where can I find you online?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Andrew. You go first.
Good setup. Oh yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Capzilla06, as well as our YouTube channel, Chasing Labels.
And as my cat tries to go up my leg, you can find me on Facebook at Stephen Billings, and also at the other Chasing Labels pages, whether it be our Twitter, our Instagram. You can find the audio for the podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, and other places. Thanks again for listening, and hey, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.